me tell you how they think. I took this and I will massacre and kill whoever to keep it. So if you think your whining and crying is gonna make me forfeit this to you, no, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep giving you what I've been giving you.
Black men still are never the primary beneficiaries of any of these things, yet it's built on Black death.
Slavery was the economy back then. America didn't start it. Nothing happened because of moral reasons. Why do we think that these people stopped these things because they felt sorry for us?
The groups that it does the most social advocacy and change are all underfunded.
Yeah.
If billions of dollars are flooding, then how come none of these groups are getting the money?
Listen what you're saying. Include me. Why would I? Do you know what I did to you for this? And now you want me to give you a chance to get it back.
What's their plan?
What is futures?
What is the 70% rule? Why do they put sigils on money?
The whole money system is on cloud smoke, man. It's all autonomous. It's digital numbers.
You went to prison for a case, studied law, and which allowed you to beat your case to get out and change your life.
Because you think you can use your law to break law, and you can't. So I pointed you out, I shine light on your and you had to let me go.
I say get away from broke people. Being poor is almost a disease. Poverty is a lesson. You're supposed to graduate from it.
The price of goods and service went up, but you making the same money every year, but you got the same spending habits too. And the only thing you say is, man, price of eggs and milk went up.
Peace, family. It's 19 Keys. Thank you for watching High Level Conversations. We want to continue to be the best show in the world, so we need your support for that. So if you enjoy this conversation, if you enjoy the value of this channel and the rest of these high-level conversations, please help spread the word. If you haven't already, please leave a 5-star review, and the best reviews we will screenshot and post on our high-level conversation page, and you will win one of many gifts that we have. We also need you to like and we need you to comment so we can be at the top of the algorithm. We're building out the platform that's going to take the culture forward. And every conversation is a piece of the puzzle so that we can elevate the consciousness of the world. Whether you're a small business or a big business, we have different packages that you can come in and help sponsor episodes so we can take things to the highest level. Now, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but if this is an exciting offer for you, then go to 19keys.com/HLC so that you can join the high level team. I appreciate you for being here and I appreciate you for watching this episode. Continue to stay high level. Peace, family. Welcome to another episode of High Level Conversations. First question I want to put on your mind is, what is money? Well, the word money comes from the Latin word moneta. It actually was a Roman goddess, right? Moneta Juno. In this particular temple, it was linked to the minting of coinage, which is why it ended up becoming connected to the word money itself. Now, the word can also be derived from moner, meaning warning, or to advise. Most people think about money as the root of all evil, which is a misinterpretation. It is the lack of money that is the root of all evil. Think about it as well, the lack of warnings, the lack of advice, right? When people don't listen, life doesn't truly go well for them. Believe me, I have family members who do not want to listen, and a lot of them are broke. I have friends who don't want to listen, and they're broke. There's people all around the world, they're broke because they don't know how to listen, how to take advice, how to take warnings, so that they can adjust their frameworks throughout life. Our beliefs around money constructs our relationship with it, which then determines our reality. You want to see people's belief around money? Look at how much money they have, right? If you have the right beliefs and the right psychology around money, most likely you're going to have an abundance of it, because it also means that you understand it. Money is a tool, but it makes a terrible master, right? As a master, money becomes your God. You start to worship moneta, right? This particular goddess, going back to ancient Roman times. These things are ideas, intrinsically linked metaphysically, right? And when you don't have the dominion over the things that are in your environment, then they can control you and make you do the wrong things for this particular goddess or entity or idea. Money is energy, right? Which is why when you have a bad relationship, then you have a bad attitude towards it, right? And then when you want it too much, it runs away from you, right? Because you push it away, and then you actually create the void between you and that thing that you want to have, right? It's not when you want something so much that you get it. It's when you have the will for it and you actually don't need it and you create the value and then it comes to you, right? I learned a long time ago that one of my greatest money lessons was that do not chase money, create value so that money chases you. But so many people have learned to chase money. They chase a dollar, right? You don't chase energy, right? You culminate energy, right? You store energy, you nurture energy. When I want energy in the gym, I don't wait till I'm energized to go. I go to the gym, right, to create energy. When I'm working out, right, I eat right, so therefore I have more energy. There's no chasing it. And then a lot of ideas that we have, we think that our reality is just conjured by what we think, missing about what we feel, which our emotions is like an ocean, right? It is all energy in motion. So when you have a negative relationship that about the ideas around money, especially in this reality, you will never have any. I believe in this era, we should be making quantum leaps, right? The traditional way of thinking is go step by step by step by step by step, and you will grow. One thing you have to learn is eliminate all traditional thinking because we're going into a new world. And the goal is how do you make quantum leaps? And that requires you to create a completely different shift, right, in your thought patterns and the way that you think. How do you develop money wisdom, money understanding, right? How do you become money wise? The individual that I'm talking to is somebody who I believe had went from chasing money to creating value, right? When he was chasing money, got him into a little bit of trouble. Then he had to become more valuable to himself, learning skill sets and knowledge that got him out of that situation. Then when he got out, he learned how to create value and get into what? The flow of money. Why do you want to get into the flow of money? Because it's all around us. You don't create an ocean. You go into the ocean and you get into the flow. You learn how to become a great sailor, right? You learn how to get into the current seas. You understand how to navigate. And money is a language of water. Everything about it is liquid, right? It's the reason we go to the bank, which is the riverbank. And when you learn this mastery of the language, your actions, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, you learn how to master money. And then it becomes a great servant. And then what you do with the money you have determines the type of life that you live. The last misconception that I want to clear up is this idea that people always say money doesn't bring happiness. The reason that they spread this is so that you have a negative relationship with money, right? It's not that it's going to bring happiness. It's just the idea that you're creating this entity in your head, right? That it doesn't bring happiness, that it couldn't pay your bills, won't allow you the freedom to chase the passion and the arts and things of that nature that you actually want to do, when it actually would if it's in the right hands of the right master. The question becomes, is that you? I want to learn from my brother today because I believe that he has mastered some of the money secrets from the streets, right, to futures, stocks, options, the financial world. And I believe that the way he thinks, right, and the presentation of his thought can help you change your patterns to start mastering money and get into the flow of money. I bring you none other than Mr. Wise Money. How you doing, my brother?
All right, brother. How you?
Man, I'm thank you.
No doubt.
Yes, sir.
It's good, man. Good to be here, brother.
Yes, sir.
Good to be here. And that introduction, it couldn't be done better, man. It couldn't be done better.
Yes, sir. I just let him flow.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So let me ask you, what is your greatest piece of advice that you've gotten or money lesson that you've learned?
Information is wealth, so get as much of it as you can. The money is spawned from the information. Without the information, the money couldn't be created. It was information about the people, like you were speaking about, Monet and the origin of money and what its purpose was and its spiritual attributes, right? Because people don't know the chase for money is just as much spiritual as it is physical, right? And I think once we start to understand that, now we want to learn more of the physical principles of money, right? Yeah. And the physical principles of money date back to when it was actually, spawned or come into existence for us, America, when they actually created that dollar. And I think understanding the when, the whys, the hows, and the whos on this particular topic is the information that we need. Because why? You're getting information on the wealthiest of us in history, the people who actually started and designed the construct. No matter how many times it made a transition, they designed it for a specific purpose. You know, we were speaking earlier, right? The first car, the first watch, the first airplane, nothing came out perfect, right? It had to be perfected over time. And this is what they do. And one major important thing that I think us as humanity should learn, especially existing here in this capitalist society here, we should learn that everything is about the money. And until the emotion is removed from it and we understand that what we're up against is a machine that will do anything to keep that autonomy, to do anything to keep that fluidity. You said money was liquid. It is. It should be liquid. It's fluid. And this is how they keep it circulating. This is how it perpetuates, because it actually is fluid. And the more you learn about it, the more you push yourself away from that level of deprivation that most of us have experienced for so long.
Yeah, I mean, just going into the metaphysics of that idea, when we talk about being in the flow of money, right? We talk about currency, you know what I mean, or currency. So we talk about banks, and we talk about being liquid, right? All of these things, again, goes into this water mind, but we think about money in such a square logical manner, right? When people who make large amounts of wealth, right? They don't think about it in this incremental manner. You know what I mean? Because you can't control the ocean. Right? So this idea of controlling the ocean, no, you learn how to become a good sailor, a good navigator.
Exactly.
Right? It's the same way where you take money or water and pour it in your hand, it's going to fall through.
Exactly.
This is why you put it into a bank, right? You put it into some vehicle so that it can flow.
Exactly.
Right? And your goal is, you know, just like our heart is not, we think about it as something that just pumps, right? But it actually has this spiral effect.
Exactly.
Right? And money is that same way, right? How do you put it into something that can create more energy out of it, right? And it changes your ideas around it, because you're not just trying to collect and save, because saving money doesn't work, right?
Exactly.
Same way if you're just trying to save water, right? When things heat up, it starts to evaporate.
That's right.
You feel me?
That's right.
And so, no, you want to put it into something that's going to get more out of it. If I drink water, I get more energy out of it.
Yeah.
Right? That's a self-investment.
Well, you got to look at it like this, right? If saving was good, ask yourself this: what if everybody was saving? So what if 100% of the U.S. economy was saving instead of spending, instead of investing, instead of doing whatever else it is that we do to keep this fluid flow and this perpetual flow of money? Because what they're actually doing is they're making money elastic. It was a point where they figured money was inelastic, meaning how can we stretch it? How can we multiply? We got to create a money multiplier. And I just think on down to the design of money, right? The U.S. Mint came into effect when 1792 with the Coinage Act, right? Because we had to get rid of the continental currency, which I was just explaining to people, right? The first currency was called the continental currency, right? That was in 1775. That currency was pretty much a fiat. That was our first fiat. It was backed by what? The promise of winning the Revolutionary War. So once we start to understand things like this about money, we begin to understand why it's even made in the first place, right? So they make money to make war, to make more money, right? So now the whole construct of the money design is this: there's going to be acts put in place because they find out that it's not as fluid as they need it to be. So what happened after the Revolutionary War? That dollar went to zero, the value of it. Why? Because Great Britain didn't only attack America back then from a physical standpoint, but they attacked them economically. How? By counterfeiting their dollars. That might have been the first instance of counterfeiting back then. We're talking 1775 during the Revolutionary War. So that currency only lasted from 75 to 1792. After that, the Coinage Act came. This is when we got our first U.S. dollar, right? So with that also came what? The U.S. Mint, where they were printing coins now. So the Coinage Act actually said that the dollar can now be worth something of value. And what was of value back then? Gold and silver. So back then, gold was like $19 a troy ounce. Silver was like $1.29. But we spoke earlier about how they actually could devalue money by pumping so much of it into the economy. And this is what eventually happened, right? With the continental currency. So it loses its value. They create the new dollar with the coinage act. And as time went on, even that, the value fluctuated in that because it's about the ratio of gold and silver, right? 1 ounce of gold, 1 ounce of silver. So as time went on, the ratio of gold to silver even changed, right? So as that ratio of gold to silver changed through the 1900s, guess what? That means less cash was available in the market now. And it also meant that silver was being devalued. So by the time, let's say, 1873 came, they called that the crime of 73. What happened then? They devalued silver completely. So now all the farmers and merchants, we didn't have economics then, we had merchants. So the merchants were hurt because of this. So what did they do? They went to war. They acted out the best way they could, the same way people act out now when these calamities strike. And I'm saying this because it's important for us to know. I hear a lot of talk about what Trump can possibly do to the economy or what Elon can do to the economy. And this is why information is wealth. Because to understand the money is to understand at least some of what they're trying to do. You get what I'm saying? So systems come and they go. They transition. They get ripped from the seams in the fabric. And the people who benefit most are the only people that don't get hurt. It's the people on the bottom that end up hurt. But how do we end up hurt, Keys? Because we don't do the very same thing that they're doing on a smaller scale, which is what? Invest. So again, I ask you the question, what if everybody was saving? When we know that I just gave an example of how even our old first dollar, the coinage act, 1792, that dollar went from being predominantly gold and silver to being no silver at all to being worth nothing. And then they actually transitioned to a new currency after that. And that's when the Federal Reserve and things like that came about. So understanding money is to understand what you should do with your money.
And how to store it. So if you look at the East Indian women, they say Indian women have the most gold, right? Because naturally one of their wealth standards is to store gold, right? Just agents, period, right? Storing gold and silver.
Yes.
But the difference is, let's say that we had that as a common thing. We wear gold as jewelry in our community.
Yeah.
We weren't taught to store it, right, as a storehouse of value. If we were, what would that have done over time? Instantly increase household income or value, right? Your net worth of each family would be going up over time because it would be directly correlated to the value of gold.
Yeah.
Right? So the Asian household is increasing in value just by a standard of practice that is cultural for them, buy gold.
Yeah.
Right? So now as that gold goes up, their value goes up. So I think what we have to do is there has to be a deprogramming and a destruction about our ideas, because most of our ideas are lessons of how to stay poor.
That's right.
Right? Not lessons of how to become wealthier. And the goal is, how do you take it to become normal versus revolutionary? So generational wealth shouldn't become our primary focus. It should just be normal.
Exactly.
And what we do is we really make the idea too big when it's very simple. It's just cultural practices that everybody should be storing money in gold and silver and other commodities that increase in value over time.
Exactly.
That we just hold, right? And then you can always borrow against because it's added towards your assets.
Now you're multiplying the money.
Exactly.
That's the money multiplier right
and
there.
what is net worth?
Exactly.
Net worth is just your earned income minus your debt plus your assets.
Exactly.
So if you take that simple equation and we say, okay, well, the average Black family is making $50,000. But if we're taking up a large percentage of that and we're converting that into an asset that's going to outpace the dollar, right? Now you're not just taking your dollar and your earned income as what you really have. You're taking that and you're using that as leverage to gain more.
Exactly.
Right? So this comes with the whole things of turning lemon to lemonade.
I mean, see, even on a bigger spectrum, on the macros, on the biggest stage we could think of, which is the feds, right? The Federal Reserve, who controls all the money coming in and out of the United States. So if anybody don't know that, and most of the other countries in the world, The central bank, which is our Federal Reserve Bank, controls all money transactions coming in and out of this country. So with that being said, right, and you sitting here now talking about saving and right, and the value of gold and things of that nature and how we should be reserved. Listen to the word, the Federal Reserve. A reserve is so when things get bad, you have that reserve to get back on your feet. It was actually designed because we never had it. The first central bank was called the Bank of United States. And it was created by Alexander Hamilton. He had the right idea, but like we spoke about earlier, systems are created, but not out of perfection, right? They're created out of a need to better themselves. So now they had to better that system. And the importance about this is for all our emotional people out there, you have to understand that these things will happen no matter how you feel about it. The only thing you can prepare for when money transitions is by investing, by getting in things like you just said that have value no matter what. If everything that you have is tied to money, then everything you have is tied to the fluctuation of the value of that money. So now, right, if you think about it, money is worth 10% of the amount of liquidity that we have in the economy. Now, let me explain that to the people. We have something called the money supply, right? And a big supply of anything says that it may not be worth what you think it is. You may be holding a bag that nobody else wants. But as people start to want it, what happens? Demand picks up, right? So our money supply has gotten so huge even from 2008. We went from 1.2 trillion to 21 trillion today, right? So the M2, M1 supply actually determines how much liquidity we have in the economy. Now, this is floating around our entire economy. Now, the M2 has, let's just say, all of your money market accounts, your CDs, things like that. So they're counting all of that money. That's every single American who has a social security number and actually contributes to this capitalist society, right? Then you got the M1. That's all cash, paper cash. That's all checking transactions and things that you can get access to right now. Whatever you could get out of your bank right now. That number is 21 trillion. We're only worth in cash 10% of that number, which puts us at $20 billion. So that means that cash now is only worth 10% of what our entire M2 liquidity supply is. So what does that say about money? It's worth nothing. Because the autonomy of it being able to continuously move is resting on the companies that we have here. The products and services that we provide. The fact that Amazon's number one, Walmart's number one, Coca-Cola's number one. That's what our dollar rests on, kind of like it did back with the continental currency of resting on a promise of us winning what? The Revolutionary War. Right now, our money rests on a promise of us being the strongest economy there is. And we've held on to that for some time, but we must remember, we got the title of the strongest economy after World War I because we were strategically able to sit out of that war until the end. And when I say we, I mean Americans. I'm not a part of that equation. I'm actually a microcosm of disruption for that equation, right? Because new systems have to come about, like you said. So what they did is they knew they were so far away that they could sit out of that European war. Sure, it was the Great Depression, but listen to the name. The Great Depression. It was Great Britain's depression. We were over here cool. Why? Because we had what? Oil, we had automobiles, and we had steel. Those are three things that you need for war. So this is why after World War I kicked off and Germany pretty much crushed Great Britain, right? Britain was still a power. We came up because everybody needed our oil. Everybody needed our steel. Everybody needed the American automobiles for war. So now once the war is over, we come in at the end of it, act like we're saving lives. When all in all we were doing was coming in to show ourselves as the plug because that's what we became. Britain no longer controlled the manufacturing, controlled any of these things because Germany crippled them. So from I would say 44 to now is how long we had this power structure. And when we mention things like DEI, which I'm sure you're going to get into, when we mention things like DEI and them basically giving us something, diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? Those are all things saying that we're asking for something.
that we think we're entitled to something, right? And we may feel like that, and I get it. I can see how we feel like that, but let me tell you how they think. If you look at the history of how they built this thing, this is how they think. I took this and I will massacre and kill whoever to keep it. So if you think your whining and crying is going to make me forfeit this to you, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep giving you what I've been giving you. Scraps, and you don't understand. You think those scraps, you think your stuff being on these shelves really means something. But what we're really keeping you away from is the stock market, is the futures market, is the crypto market. So while people are afraid to go into crypto, you let a revolt on crypto for a while, telling people, listen, get with the times. While we were scared to get with the times, money lost 30% of its value. Cash, I'm talking. Now, our M2 liquidity supply is 90% digital. Do people understand what that means? We're 90% digital now. Only 10% of our economy is cash. That's it. So if that there don't tell you what type of knowledge you should be picking up on right now, what type of things you should be clicking on your Instagram, you know, we could be scared all we want, and we can have opinions all we want. But the best thing for us to do is prepare. So if you've been saving cash for the past 20, let's say 15 years, since 2008, that means that 1.2 million in liquidity we had just went to 21 trillion, and your cash just went to nothing because it caused inflation. Your dollar definitely don't get you what it got you in 2008. And the problem with that is your job probably only increased your wages probably 2 or 3 times since that time.
That's a fact, which means that you've lost purchasing power the whole entire time.
Yeah, because you still had your habits, and you continue because you don't understand inflation, because you think economics is a boring conversation and you don't think it's important. Guess what? You wasn't making no more wages. The price of goods and service went up, but you making the same money every year, but you got the same spending habits too. And the only thing you say is, man, price of eggs and milk went up.
Right. And during that time, what you should be increasing is your productivity and inventiveness.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Especially when you find yourself during a debt cycle, right? It's like this. For us as a people, you spoke on the idea that, you know, we're constantly waiting, not all of us, right? I don't like to speak in a monolithic tone, but a lot of the ideas that we push out there is about our progress being based upon what they give us versus what we did for ourselves.
Yes.
And no progress that we've made in this country is based on what anybody has given us. Don't get me wrong. We fought for every single thing that we asked for. We put our,
even if we were asking for the wrong thing, we still went hard for it. We still went hard for it.
It's just, and I don't want to make it seem like civil rights was us begging for a place at the table. No, we was fighting for, you know, equal rights, right? We wanted our schools to be equal and things of that nature. And for the most part, it may have just been short-sighted, right?
But not to cut your thought, but here's something I think that people need to know. That's a direct threat to the construct.
Yeah, 100%.
An equal seat at the table for anybody, and not just our religion. For any economic system that thrives on economy, there has to be somebody at the bottom.
There's never, the person that has the power to give you that will never give you that.
Exactly.
Why would I give you equal power?
Why?
So that you can control me?
The economy is based on somebody being up and somebody being down. That's the only way it functions.
The masters of society will never give, right, the lower class power to control them.
No.
We'll already give you an illusion of power.
Yeah.
Right? And an illusion of progress. But that has to mean that we're 50 steps ahead if I allow you to get 10 steps ahead.
Exactly.
You feel me? And so you always should be cautious of what you're giving versus what they're getting, right? So if we're getting you more, that means that it's now worth less, right? And that's always been our dilemma, is getting the short end of the stick. And it's really more so been our framing towards progress.
Yes.
Right? Progress should be seen only as ownership, right? And equity. And it should be based on our achievements. Don't get me wrong. It's okay to make progress in all fields. But when the middle class is primarily held up by government jobs, right? We have to think about that, because sometimes that we will cheer something, not realizing what it really means.
Yeah.
Because I would rather that statistic not be a fact. It's great that people were able to get their jobs and work in how they worked, right? But then that should become a smaller thing because we should be evolving out of.
Exactly.
We do need to be inside these government positions, but then we should be creating parallel networks as well that decreases our dependency, right,
Exactly.
on these particular networks. So then they say, okay, well, that's how it started. But then we took that money and that leverage and we created our own thing over here. It should always not, what happens is we get comfortable, right? And comfort corrupts. So now you got the job making a little money, right? You're part of your unions and organizations and churches, right? You say, well, this is the way life is going to be. This is how we're going to build. Then a new government figure comes in and disrupts that. So now pulling contracts away from you, job opportunities, making you feel emotionally unstable that you don't know about the certainty of your future.
That's right.
Versus not just about the products in Target and Walmart, those are great, right? We fought for that again.
Yeah.
All the things we fight for, those are fine. But we're living in a day and age, and we can create parallel systems to those as well. We have the internet. We have
White label.
digital
Why
era.
can't we white label it?
Exactly. If we can go into a Target and we can have a boycott where we go buy as many black products in Target, well, that's one way to look at it, right? But at this point in time, we should only do the radical thing, right? We should only do the thing that creates mass disruption and change because the status quo does not work. So instead, we should go to places and look at like how We Buy Black was doing it, to where it was just, or my good sister, our conundrum, we had a virtual mall of just black-owned products.
Mm.
You go on that and you flood those sites.
Yeah.
That's a greater punishment, right? Versus I'm going to support all the black people in your business so that you don't take them away.
Yeah.
That's not really a punishment, because even with the DEI, they haven't announced that they're actually getting rid of black businesses.
They did.
And black products. They
did.
said we're getting rid of DEI, and we're at the lower bottom of it. We don't even benefit the most. And it was built on Black Death, George Floyd, right? Protest, BLM, convert that, right, into advocacy. That advocacy turns into this corporation or looking at their bottom line, not wanting that to be affected, coming up with these programs, right? Saying that we're going to give billions of dollars to minority businesses.
So let me ask you something.
But
was our products on the shelf before all of this?
I don't even know. Some of them were, some of them weren't, right? I think that there was some uptick because I know some people that have gotten that stuff into stores. But the reality of it is the fact that we should never stop the movement, right? So we get that, we take that from them, right? And then we say, okay, that was great. Now, but the real progress is only when we own. We're just leveraging these things. But going back to my primary point is the fact that black men still are never the primary beneficiaries of any of these things, yet it's built on black death, black male death specifically. So how do you get DEI, which promises billions of dollars flooding into so-called minority communities, right? But then the basis on who's back and who's deaf that is built off, because that's blood money. You know what I mean? That's deaf money. Our blood specifically. Black male bodies.
Yeah.
In the streets. Strange fruit. But we benefit the least.
Yes.
That makes no sense at all. So I would never look at that as a form of progress whatsoever.
Well, mathematically, we benefit the least when these programs come about because we're fighting for equality.
But also, if the head of the household, the black man, specifically in the black community, is not being raised up, then that community is not making no progress.
That's true. That's true. But my whole thing is on this equality topic, right? I don't want equality right now. Let me tell you why. That's like my bully whooped my butt for a week straight.
And then equality with who?
Yeah. With who? Because I'm gonna tell you what equality
There's different
does.
Classes.
What equality does is this. That's like that. One for me, one for you.
Yeah.
1, 2 for me, 1, 2 for you. That's what that is.
But if I already got $1 billion, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just start giving us equal shillings. It's still never equal.
It's still never equal.
But also,
because I didn't give you the game on how I got the billion.
Equality is in that particular manner is a grift.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not real because we're not equal.
No.
Right? In the capitalist system, there's no such thing as equality.
It can't be.
Right? The whole idea is a competitive market where people are trying to out-earn you. You feel me? It's a hustler's market. So you can't force equality unless you're trying to create universal basic income,
But then even that is not equality because people are still going to have more than the have-nots.
Yes.
So it's saying that wait till we are disproportionately 10,000 times more wealthier than them, then roll out equality.
Exactly.
Right? So it still creates this illusion because what is the reality of it is that when people are in debt, right? And people are utilizing credit and things of that nature, and you can compare this to slavery, if you will, because slavery by any degree is slavery, right? It first started off as debt slavery. You have to pay off debt with your body, right? Physical labor and things of that nature. But when we look at that, we're saying, okay, well, this person is utilizing all their time and energy so that they can get food, right? Clothing and shelter, right? That was the payoff, so-calledly, right, of slavery.
Exactly.
But then, of course, you get inhumane treatment if we talking chattel. If we talking regular slavery, then it's just payment of debt. You still getting food, clothing, and shelter.
Exactly.
Then I think my brother, the Wealth Squad, Chris, he was talking about this. And he was saying, well, we can look at modern jobs as a form of slavery still. Because the average person still can afford food, clothing, and shelter.
Exactly.
And they're spending all their time working for somebody else just to try to afford and maintain that lifestyle. But all their time and energy and effort is going to making somebody else wealthier.
Exactly.
So when we look at money at first, the people who make the most money is the people who can manage the most energy, right?
Exactly.
So if I can manage the most people on the field, then I can become wealthy, right? Especially if I'm not paying you and I'm taking all of the profits.
That's right.
So corporations are beholden to stockholders and not the people or employees.
And it's been that one from day one. It's been that way from day one. That's what we spoke about.
It goes back to when the Dodge brothers, it was these two brothers, they had this particular corporation that they were suing Ford, right? And they were suing Ford so that he was doing what benefits the primary holders, right, of the stocks versus the employees. So let's say you want to give your employees an increase in wages. And he like, no, that money, that profit should go to us.
Exactly.
We are the investors. So sue them, take them to court, win, and then fiduciary duty is now set as a precedent for all corporations to be able to follow. What does that do? That changes, right, the whole entire system, number one. So now, instead if I make me a healthy product, right, and I'm selling a so-called a vitamin or I'm selling some food, and I now learn of an ingredient that I can put on there, right, that may decrease the healthy aspect of it by 30%,
Yeah.
but it allows us to make more product.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that means that we can now have it at cheaper cost as well, but then I get the report that this shit is unhealthy for the people.
Yeah.
I have a duty to still use that product, right? Because now it's come to my awareness. I have to. So it doesn't matter if it's for the health of the people or not.
Exactly.
Right? What matters is whether I can make my stockholders more money and more money. That's when capitalism goes into extreme greed. And what you really need to do understanding money is understanding fear and greed.
That's right.
Once you understand fear and greed of the market, right, then you start to be able to analyze the sentiment. Those at the top are extremely greedy.
That's right.
I want more, and it's an insatiable appetite.
That's right.
I will never have enough. Because in America, we don't even believe in this idea of enough.
Yeah.
The rich should just keep getting richer, regardless of whose detriment.
Exactly.
As long as it's to the benefit of the holders. So we're going to talk about the stock market. We're going to talk about futures. But I also want to talk about, after that, how we get to a future to where even when we look at the stock market, there's only a handful of black businesses.
Yes.
Right? If we really have a real revolution, right, and a real movement that is respected, then as we teach stocks, those businesses, as we get more into stocks, should have seen an increase as more black people are getting into investments.
Exactly.
That's what a respectable community would do for each other. There's no way that Asian community are like one of the Asians and whites, one of the highest investors, right?
Yeah.
So let's say they just now started over the last 5 years and it just became this huge wave. Well, all of the Asian businesses, right, are neglected.
Gotcha.
What would that say about them? Will we respect that? They'd be like, man, they just got in. They don't even support the Asian businesses. Yet they teaching all this stocks and stuff. Like, all right, cool for us. You feel me? Y'all gonna make us richer. We gonna get richer than y'all. y'all gonna benefit some, but never more than us.
Exactly.
And then you ignoring your own, so you're not even looking at progress as directly correlating with your own ownership in businesses that you control. You're looking at it only as investment in our businesses, which we control.
Peace, family. It's two things that you need right now in order to win in life ultimately. You need your mind right and you need your money right. And that's the challenge that I put to you. For the mind right part, I can handle that, right? I can get you thinking optimally to where you can succeed in any environment in life. For the money right part, that's when I got Wise Money Santino, and they're going to teach you about something called mini futures, to where you learn how to master the market and move like the market makers. This will allow you to be able to make money in any market. I was always taught, do not chase money. You create value and money comes to you. The way you become more valuable is through learning. When you develop a new skill, a skill that nobody can take away from you, you can make money regardless of what's happening in the market. There's always something being traded. Right now, we're over trading our time trying to make money, when we should be developing our mind and utilizing our skills to make money. Wise Money Santino is somebody who's been doing this for a living, being able to pull money out the market because of the skill set that nobody can snatch away. So I want to challenge you to a VIP experience to where you can experience live trading. You can develop these skills and you can master the market like the market makers do. Make sure you tap in to the Mind Right, Money Right Challenge, 19 keys. And I'll see you there. Peace.
That's right. And the thing about it is it's about 7 to 8 companies that you're talking about listed on the U.S. stock market. Only about 3 black-owned banks. One being, I think it's called United One or something like that. They've been around forever, right? But it's just certain things that they still have a level of deprivation as compared to other banks. Now, there's 24 major banks that run through the central banking system, which is the Federal Reserve, right? JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, all being at the helm of it, right? So when you talk about a black bank, right, and you talk about them coming under the fold of the Federal Reserve like every other bank, which means that there's one central bank for us, right? And that's why it's called the Reserve, because they're there to pretty much break any fall that we have, because we learned in the past, right, that these falls have left us crippled. We didn't know how to recover from them. So now we need an independent entity that understands money and understand how to keep it perpetual no matter what the calamity that takes place. We still know how to keep this money in the event of the rainy day. So that's what they are. And they have a power called monetary policy that allows them to do things to fluctuate inflation, fluctuate interest rates. They don't do it themselves. Like, they don't go on the computer and say, okay, I want to drop the interest rate 1%. No, they do things to drop the interest rate because monetarily, they're the most powerful entity we have in this country, right? When they wave a wand, people get hurt financially and some physically. People get hurt when they wave a wand. So they'll pump all this money into the economy, and then we get all high on, these low prices and this ability to get contracts, government contracts and loans. Oh, I remember one time everybody was running around with platinum credit cards at one time, because you get these instances throughout these institutions where they may have a trend where they are giving out money. Why? Because they have an excess of money. You see what I'm saying? So the reserve also requires these banks to keep a certain amount of money on reserve. You talk about that fiduciary duty, right? Why you think their fiduciary duty only covers you up to 100,000, right? It only covers you up to 100,000. It makes sense. If we have a $21 trillion economy and only 20 billion of that is cash, then you see why it only covers you up to that amount. So if you got 10 million in your account and it's lost, they're going to cover you up to 100 grand. That's their fiduciary duty. That's the FDIC, the insurance on your account, right? And what is that actually? What is that actually? That's them allowing to be able to keep their reserves while everybody else starved. You see what I'm saying? What happened during the 2008 financial crisis? They held their reserves. They bailed who out first? You talk about stakeholders, right?
Who did they bail out first? The banks.
Banks.
And nobody went to jail, and they were the ones that actually caused the calamity in the first place. But you can't punish the banks according to them, because now you punish the autonomy of wealth in this country. So you could look at, I posted something before about TD Bank and how they were laundering money for drug cartels. And I posted that just to challenge people thinking. I understand what's behind it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that they're not just laundering money for drug cartels. They're laundering any kind of money,
Mm-hmm.
because money has to be reciprocal. Even there is no such thing as uncounted money. The only money that's probably being uncounted is Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. There is no such thing as counted cash. They know where it is. This is why they have a U.S. Treasury Department to go down there and track down what? Unrecorded bills. You see what I'm saying? Because they have to keep track of that, because that is the seed of the autonomy. That is the seed of the perpetual cycle of the rich staying rich and the poor staying poor. This, like you said, it's a capitalist society.
Mm-hmm.
There can be no equality in a capitalist society. So I'm trying to figure out, for us as people, when are we going to logically understand that and stop betting on hope?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, if this thing is to stay perpetual, there is going to have to be somebody up and somebody down.
And just disconnecting our wealth from theirs.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
So you said something, right? You said, okay, DEI was supposed to pump billions of dollars into the black community, correct? For them to do what with it? Because the goal,
for we was gonna do with it.
yeah, what were we gonna do with it? What were we gonna do with the billions of dollars they were gonna pump?
But we're
into the
supposed to
community?
repair our communities and build community centers and facilities and mental health advocacy and
But obviously we weren't conditioned to do
entrepreneurship.
that, right?
Yeah.
Obviously they know we're not conditioned to do that, right?
Well, then there's also a difference between commitment and deployment.
It is.
So the way they get us with language is, we will commit $1 billion.
Commit.
Right? We got $1 billion for you. I come to you, I got $1 billion for you. You make the announcement, man, goddamn, the bank just committed $1 billion. Then what happens? You go to them and you say, all right, I just found a business. I want to invest in 19 Keys, man. He got immediate platforms, blah, blah. Now we don't like that. Reject it. If they then you go to them over a course of a year, because they said we go commit this over the course of 5 years.
Yeah.
But every time you go to them with an idea, they reject it. But remember, they committed to do it, but they rejected every single opportunity of deployment.
Yeah.
So when we see this language, we think, oh, snap, this commitment has actually been deployed, and it hasn't. But because we don't understand the language, they get to play the game with us.
Yeah.
So they get a representative of the commitment, but we don't always see the deployment. So now we're wondering, where the hell did those dollars go if they were deployed?
Yeah.
And then when they do get deployed, a lot of times it goes towards parties and research and things that don't actually create or manufacture change. And it's not always the corporations. It's the person that they put in front of, because they find a token most of the time.
Yeah.
And they're afraid to do anything dangerous with the money.
Exactly.
So what they do is they operate within their friends network. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To these nonprofits and things of that nature, right? That are afraid to do anything real with it because they're disconnected, because they're operating in a class group, right? So we went to the same school. You was at the same frat, right? Not what actually will create and manufacture real change, which is why most of the time the groups that it does the most social advocacy and change are all underfunded.
Yeah.
If billions of dollars are flooding, then how come none of these groups are getting the money?
Bro, I have a friend of mine. Shout out to Uncle Charles, Wall Street Consortium. My guy, he works for Jamie Dimon. And
not to cut off your wisdom, because they be telling me I be cutting people off.
oh no, you
be
good.
cutting me off too.
No,
so
no,
it's
we
good.
good.
We got
you know we
it's
might,
sportsmanship.
you know we might have suffered from the same gifts as a kid. You know they say we like to cut people
that.
off because it needs to be said.
No, not to cut your wisdom. That's what we say. We say not to cut your
That's
wisdom.
right.
You know
That's
what I'm
right.
saying?
The wisdom can't
I
be
think
cut
that
though.
direct your flow with intelligence.
It's fluid.
Yes, sir.
It's fluid. So the thing is, Uncle Charles worked for Jamie Dimon, and he told me that Jamie Dimon said right now, I believe it was in Mississippi, he said there's $60 billion right now down there in our branch in Mississippi that's waiting for people. He said, but are we going to tell them it's down there? No. So it's that thing, right? So you put the money into the hood, right? or you put the money
Right.
back into
They
the
don't know
community.
how to get it out.
They
Fill out the
don't know how to
paperwork,
do nothing.
the proper grant.
Exactly.
Knowing that what you would have really done is you would have put marketing and put a program together to show people how to get the money so that they're qualified for, which would have been the best advocacy so that people can actually unlock it.
Yeah, so it's subliminal red line.
Yeah, because
It's
they're just
subliminal
trying to
red line.
fill quotas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, we did it, but they didn't get
They
it.
didn't get it.
It's not my fault. They didn't get it.
They didn't get it. So what happens to that money? It surfaces, it flows right back to the banks. Let's talk about that because that's important. What happens to the money that Jamie Dimon said nobody used? Another bank call him up and say, I'm short on my reserve for the day. I need that money. Now they get the money and they go lend it to somebody else. And this is how the money stays perpetual amongst them. But what's our benefit? Again, if we put that money, if right now, what'll happen if you give $1 million to a monkey? Nothing. Because a monkey don't want $1 million. He want bananas.
Right. It's money to him.
We don't want DEI, truthfully. We think we do. We don't know what to do with 60 billion. So here's what we're going to do, Keys. We're going to take that money and we're going to go back to your banks and get these loans to buy this house, to believe that we're owner of something that's taken us 30 years to pay. We're going to integrate ourselves deeper with those benefits into their system. But if we learn what to really do with that money, the question would be not how much you're putting into the hood, but how much of it is staying in the hood. Because if you giving us $60 billion to go into this particular neighborhood, but I'm getting it and I'm going over here to buy my food, I'm going to this supermarket, we don't take that money and build supermarkets, then we got to go to Target.
That's a fact.
I see people, I walk in Target, people looking at me, black people looking at me like this, and I'm looking at them. I've never said I wasn't going to shop from Target. That's what you said, and it makes no sense. It's not a real employable strategy. Because it's based on what? Emotion. And it's based on the echoes of people that have gotten it wrong in the past. Y'all keep focusing on the wrong things. It's not about the money that's coming. It's about giving people the schematics and a blueprint to how to use the money. Because that's what the transitioning of money 4 or 5 times in the history of our country happened. That's why it happened in the first place. The perfecting of it. So give us the knowledge on the blueprint, the design, the construct of it. No, you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
Quality doesn't come in things, it comes in here.
And I don't think we know how to pass over the shifts. Right?
No, we don't.
So, let's say there's been a long time where a lot of people have done really good in our community. Heart, I think, is in the right place, things of that nature. But they don't know when to pass the torch to somebody else who may be a better steward of that position.
Yeah.
Right? Like during now, what we need to get together is our relationship with God and money.
That's right.
Right? And I think that relationship with God, number one, Savior's Day just passed. The brother Minister Ishmael was talking about a delivered message from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on how it ain't economy, it ain't none of these things that we talk, it ain't jobs. It's our relationship with God right now that will save us during this time. That's how you save yourself. And right now, we're out, right, of functional. We have a dysfunctional relationship with God.
Yes.
Right? And I believe in that because it's our righteousness that sustains us.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to, or I ain't gonna say we don't know how to, we have not put that at the forefront of the movement because we should be able to easily agree that it is righteousness in the morals and the values and getting back to the root of the redevelopment of what culture is.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
You shouldn't be mad that a Kendrick Lamar is going to the Super Bowl and creating an image of Black America as resilient and resistance and revolution. Right?
Yeah.
And just porting that out to the world. That Super Bowl was the most watched event in history. But when you think about that, that means that who would have been a better representation? What would have been a better representation?
What else could you have said
of
if
the
you
Black
got
American
you got
spirit?
that much attention?
You
at
got
that
the
time.
whole world watching.
Yeah, yeah.
So you telling me you would have rather got up there and heard somebody talk about killing each other, degrading they women, you know what I mean? Just up there twerking, you feel me, wilding up, and just a nigga representation.
What's just your senseless
Or
favorite song?
you don't want a representation of a man with a message and a meaning, and everybody's talking about the intellect in it. So when I hear people that get mad at the fact that He went up there and represented us with meaning and culture and advocacy and thoughtfulness. Well, now the rest of the world is looking at Black American image as meaning and advocacy and revolutionary and thoughtfulness.
And not afraid to say it, right?
Not
He
afraid.
he unapologetically did
And
that.
did it with the art, because the way you have to do it with the art. There was songs he could have performed.
Could have did We Gonna Be All Right.
Right, he gonna be all right, but we not gonna be all right if we don't do the right thing.
That's right.
You feel me? So we don't need to go up there and tell people lies. You need to give people the truth. This representation of Samuel Jackson as Uncle Sam, you feel me? This the Django character, you feel me? I think was the key. I think going up there and showing Black American revolutionary spirit, you feel me? Which is bars. That's the acronym right there. The Black American revolutionary spirit.
Yeah.
That's the real bar. So when you go out to another country, now they looking at you from that lens.
Yeah.
That's the most viewed imagery of Black America in history.
That's right.
Right? That's a powerful representation. I would rather be viewed from that lens than I go out there and they view me from a lens of, oh, y'all kill each other.
Yeah.
Or y'all murder each other. Or y'all just shoot at each other.
Because it was a stand-up performance. What he did is he stood up against the system.
You want that image in hip-hop.
Yeah.
You want that. And if you against that, that's because you're looking at, here's the whole thing. They say numbers don't lie. Numbers absolutely do lie. We have to stop saying that because you can manipulate the numbers. You can go get a false segment of the population and get a skewed view of what those numbers mean. You have to look at who's behind the numbers, right? We got AI now. AI can just create a statistic and then you go out and share it and say numbers don't lie.
That's right.
Yes, the numbers represent a lie.
That's right.
In the first place. And they don't matter as much. When we become these little capitalists, all we do is look at the numbers. Growing up in our era, right? Well, I'm a little younger than you. You're a little more seasoned. You feel me? Got a little more salt, pepper on the head. You feel me?
A little bit of platinum up there.
But growing up, man, I grew up in a mixtape era where we don't know nobody numbers.
That's right.
It was just about whether we liked it. It was about whether they were skillful and talented.
Yeah, you wouldn't really go out and say how many mixtapes.
Right.
I don't
care what.
Only reason why you knew he sold mixtapes because everybody's car was playing it.
So if somebody else hacks an algorithm, they sell a jingle, right? Because that jingle catches on and becomes viral. You telling me I'm going to judge that as better music than something I actually like?
Exactly.
Right? And that I actually feel something from, right? And that represents my true spirit and gets me through a moment in time?
Yeah.
No, you'd have lost your mind. So the reason that things are so degraded, right, is because we are looking at things as these numbers and these metrics and we become a machine-like.
Yeah.
We're viewing reality the way they want us to, not the way that we should. We're supposed to view it through a filter of spirituality.
That's right.
Right? Our connection to it and whether it is good for the culture. So they've changed our culture to devalue ourselves. But as long as we're making money, which means money is the master.
That's right.
Right? Then it's controlling us. And then we're worshiping that deity again. You feel me? And so now we are spiritually bankrupt and corrupt. And we're justifying this corruption by the fact that, well, the numbers represent that a lot of people are being manipulated by this thing.
Exactly.
And these are machines. These are bots. Streams do lie. Because what do they mean? Who controls the stream? Right? It should be a stream of consciousness. It should be a connection.
That's right.
So again, all of this is a conversation around money because money has too much of a stranglehold.
Yes, sir.
When a person is broke, what does that mean, man? That means that you're not working. Something's not working when it's broke.
That's right.
There's a way to fix something.
That's right.
Right? And so right now, we don't have a good balance. You know what I'm saying? When you bankrupt, your balance is low. You feel me? When your energy is low, your balance is low. Right? You need to work on your gut. You feel me? You need to work on your health. You need to work on your spiritual environment. All of that goes into our relationship with money.
Exactly.
And we have to stop allowing that to be so powerful over us, right? We have to stop spending more than we get.
That's right.
Right? We have to change our relationship with debt and credit.
That's right.
Leverage debt. That's fine. That's what the rich do. They don't want to spend their money. Instead, they would rather leverage the debt and go get them a loan so that the loan is not taxed.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like our relationship with money, like from our parents and our fathers, we have to just forget what they knew.
Yeah.
They didn't know anything about money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they weren't rich, then they didn't even have enough experience with money to be good stewards of it.
That's right.
Right? Right now, the goal for all families should be setting up trust, It should be investing into land.
Yeah, we're not
It
serious
should be
enough about
developing
legacy.
a skill set.
We're not
about
serious enough about legacy.
money skills
Our
matter.
people that we're going up against, the construct that we're going up against, they are so dead serious about legacy.
Yeah.
And how many times they got to prove that to us? That's the whole thing. Legacy has to be important. And what is legacy? It's not just what you leave the kid. No, it's the information you leave behind along with it, right? So I got a student that said he got a library of our video lessons. Why? Because he said that's the most important thing he's going to pass to his grandkids. And they can't get to the money. It's set up. They can't get to the money. The gate is the information. So the information is the gatekeeper on this one.
Yeah.
In order for them to get to whatever he left to them, they got to first absorb that information, because he understands that, again, you give a monkey $1 million, he's going to buy bananas.
Right. But you know what we do? We say, in order to get this money, go learn what they go teach you. Then you get access.
That's right.
So no, instead, that's a really great point you just brought up, because when you set up that trust, everybody should be trust fund babies.
That's right.
Right? We got to stop bragging about coming from nothing, right? And we need to start bragging about coming from something, right? Because that represents that our parents, right, did something right.
That's right.
And we're setting each other up. I don't want to come from nothing no more. Tired of it. You know what I'm saying? I want to be a trust fund baby with inheritances. The only problem is this. Poker teaches you a lot about the game of life, right? It's one of the greatest teachers. 88% of wins in poker doesn't come from having a good hand. It comes from having strategy, psychology, right, and skills.
That's right.
Right? Only 12% of the time having a good hand is directly correlated with winning.
That's right.
Right? And in life, we're not always dealt a good hand, right? But you don't need to. We become over dependent on this idea that we didn't get the best cards. No, that's not how life works. Life is going to be dependent upon your ability to create relationships, right?
Yeah.
Communicate, understanding people and psychology, the way you can strategize and maneuver within life. So when we talk about equality, what's equal if I make my child a genius? Yours inherited money, but he ain't got nothing on mine. Mine can run laps around yours.
That's right.
You feel me? Because he's not worrying about what he inherited per se, right? Versus who he is.
Exactly.
And now he's going to go about playing in this game of life, which requires him to be a brilliant, resilient thinker. So at the first level of inheritance, if we can't pass down assets, right, then we need to be raising our children to become their own asset.
But
Which is mental development.
It's two aspects to it, right? Is what were you left, and who were you left by, right? So think about, everybody speak about the Rothschilds, right? Now, factually, was the richest family in history, right? They had $1 trillion based on today's inflation. Back then, they were $1 trillion family. Mayor Rothschild. So what I mean by, it's not about just what you're leaving, it's who did they inherit, right? And when I say who, like some of us inherited Malcolm X. Some of us inherited, I believe I inherited Nat Turner. I don't believe my ship would have made it over here. It would have sunk because I would have caused it.
I heard that John Horse, that Elijah Muhammad, that Huey P.
Yeah. That's who some of us inherited. We talked about it earlier. My era inherited the 5% Nation and things like that, different brothers who would come through and teach you. What is this generation inherited, right? So when we speak about Jewish individuals and how they're able to do what they do, and let's be clear on something. Jews do not run the United States. The United States was built by J.P. Morgan, by Andrew Carnegie, and by the Vanderbilts, and none of them are Jewish. And the Rockefellers, they're not Jewish.
Those are the men who built America.
Those are the men who built America. So let's be clear. When we say this Jewish thing and we give them that much power, yeah, they have it. They have the power because they have the money and they have the community, they have the collectiveness. See, we always just look, Jews got money. What about the collectiveness? What about the fact that they're so disciplined they won't buy from nothing but each other? What about the fact that they support each other no matter if they're at war, no matter what emotional dissension they have amongst them, we can come together. So when the Federal Reserve was created in 1910, it was a secret meeting. It ain't secret no more, and it's not a conspiracy. It's facts, so don't let people tell y'all that. It was a meeting on Jekyll Isle, which is an island off the coast of Georgia, where a few businessmen, J.P. Morgan, an agent of John D. Rockefeller, and I'm going to get to why agent came, and an agent of
I think it was Wells Fargo. Don't quote me on that. But it was agents of the men that came because the men themselves didn't want to be in the same room with the people that were there. So they didn't always see eye to eye. You seen the men who built America, right? They didn't see eye to eye, and they actually posed physical threats on each other. They killed each other's people. They tried to burn down each other's houses. And to them, shoot me in the head before you cripple my business. That's how serious they are about money. Blow my brains out, but do not cripple my business, because if you cripple my business, you cripple my legacy. Once again, they're so serious about legacy. How many examples do we need? So when it comes to DEI, when it comes to all these things, and we're asking for inclusion, listen what you're saying. Include me. Why would I? Do you know what I did to you for this? And now you want me to give you a chance to get it back. And when I say you, I mean humanity, because we always, and don't get me wrong, slavery is our thing. So we should feel however we feel. We could feel however we want to feel about it, right? But also remember this, when these people made these transitions to take over countries, to build economic systems, everybody got crushed under their feet. It was a reason we went through what we went through. They couldn't kill those many people off after it was over. We need you to do what? Help us build this construct. Because without you, it's not strong. So imagine if they remove the black people from the equation back then. Are they still as strong as Britain now? Absolutely not. Because you know why? Britain ain't removed their black people from the equation. They told them you got to work 2 years for free.
We don't realize how much this has made us the most innovative and inventive people.
Yeah.
There's something called the Parasite Theory. It's a doctor, I believe his name is Sapolor. It was in 2021, and it showed that in areas where they went through the most contagions and diseases and things of that nature, end up filing the most patents.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Wow.
Because, you know, that slow resistance and development over time makes them more innovative, right?
Yeah.
In their defense systems, right? And how they go about doing things. And so they show like where there was malaria in different places, and they was talking about this idea of like, do you want to immediately inoculate everybody and cure everything? Right? Because then that can slow down progress, because people don't have a reason to think in this survival mechanistic way.
Yeah.
Right? How do I create and invent? We've always been in that factor of coming from behind the A ball. So we've always been forced to become creative and more inventive.
Exactly.
Which is why we're the more creative people on this planet Earth. Right? Because we were never given the privilege. So we always had to create. Right? We always had to operate like that in the first place. So I really want us to challenge our, number one, our view of history. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was 1522. It was the rebellion on Hispaniola, which is often cited as the first major uprising, right? 1503, it was enslaved Africans began fleeing to the mountains, forming the first Maroon societies. There was a time in the 1500s where when they had brought them over, they had actually killed their slave masters that brought them over.
Yeah.
You feel me? This is why they don't show slavery starting to 1619.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? They didn't just come over here and put you in chains. No, people was killing their slave masters when they came over here.
Ships were being
So
burned. Things wasn't going
it wasn't going as planned at all.
No.
It took them about damn near 100 years to figure out the making of a slave.
And then we understand why the fear of the devil had to been pumped in us. Not the fear of God, the fear of the devil.
But then also, it never actually took, because there's never been a decade from the 1500s all the way up until 1865, right? That there wasn't a rebellion, there wasn't a war, there wasn't us fighting back. There was never just peace and we just slaves.
Yeah.
That never was the case. There was guerrilla warfare. We was disrupting their supply chains. You feel me?
Ships, everything.
Burning ships. We had freedmen. We had the Maroons.
I mean, why
we
do you
had
think they
places
made
we was
the
free.
example out of Nat Turner they made, though?
Yeah, but that Turner...
He one person that caused so much damage.
It's more so about them spreading the story of Nat Turner.
Exactly.
Because they was able to use that. But there was thousands of Nat Turners.
Exactly.
You feel me? There were princes that came over from other countries that were Muslims that learned how to read, that came over here already knowing 5 languages. You feel me? He was a slave for 40 plus years, and they thought that they turned him into a Christian.
Yeah.
They tried to utilize him as a pawn politically. Even the presidents was getting fooled by him, because they was having him write down prayers so that he can convert people in other languages. The whole time he was writing down, the prayer in the Quran. You know what I'm saying? The whole time they didn't know because they couldn't read the language.
Wow.
So he was really spreading Islam the whole time. They thought that he was converting people into Christianity.
I mean, which is why in the beginning, you know, we have so many places named Salam in the first place.
Yeah. And,
Salam, Virginia, Salem.
and his family's from
Sure.
Mississippi.
Exactly.
So when people say that they came from kings, they might have.
And not to mention, they like when people came over here with those types of qualities about them, they had to separate them so they could identify.
Oh,
them
no,
back then.
they used them.
Yeah.
So this brother came over and said he was a prince. They laughed at him. They start calling him Prince as a nickname. But his slave master, right, worked with him because he was able to turn around a tobacco field. Because you got to remember, they were more advanced, right? He come from royalty. So he got 5 languages, right? He has knowledge of things that they didn't know. This just this goddamn farmer, right? White dude that doesn't know any business. He doesn't know anything. So now he got this highly intelligent, right, slave under his command that he ended up working with, right, and for, because he also was smarter than his slave master. So he was able to negotiate himself eventually out of slavery, right? But they tricked him, and they never, after they gave him his slavery, they didn't want him to enjoy freedom in America.
I mean, it's
Right?
a 100.
He ended up
It's
dying before he
100%.
could go back to his.
It's a 100% fact that we was at the design of the construct, like even economically.
Right.
Even economically, the ones of us that were allowed to be educated during that time, economically, we also helped these systems out too.
But should we came with it? I get frustrated about.
Well,
this
we were
idea.
making
Like,
steel. We were
came
making steel before America.
with the education. We came with systems. We came with knowledge, right? Like the history of Islam in America, right? Because even the Islamic banking system is completely different than American. Western and Eastern completely different. But we came with knowledge, and we have historically been so Christianized in our thinking that we just completely erase history for what point of view that we want.
Exactly.
So that
What's suitable for
right,
makes
what's
us feel
suitable
comfortable.
for our agenda versus just giving people the whole truth.
Exactly.
Right? And the truth shapes the mind, right, the right way. But when you give people selective truths and you tell them about a slave that was beat and burned and his flesh was turned into a bag, that is a story that instills fear.
That's right.
Some of us take that story and be prideful. But then if you told that story that wasn't an anomaly, right? There was hundreds and hundreds of more of that happening. Then you get a story of a people
It's like we
that were
spoke.
warriors.
It's like we spoke earlier, right? If again, understanding the money, right? Understanding the money helps you know that the constructs are put in place for a reason. So when we think about slavery now, as heinous as it was, the story, like you said, people focus on particular stories, but they don't focus on the overall scheme of things and why a thing was here. Slavery was the economy back then. Bottom line, America didn't start it. The people who settled in the United States didn't start. It was started in, other countries, Dutch, France, Great Britain. They already had a hold on slavery. Our slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, were one of the most memorable because this is the country we live in. If you were in Great Britain, you probably got a different story over there. And not to mention, whatever Great Britain had to do to keep us in the mentality of being slaves over there, America had to do 10 times that over here. You understand? You remember they only removed us from only a few countries. They didn't go deep in that. They went to Angola. They went to the Congo. They went to Morocco, parts of Morocco. They didn't go down to Sudan. They didn't go down to Somalia. We see what happened when they went to Somalia, even in present day. So it's a thing where everything is calculated from day one, even to the construct of it all, right? Slavery was an economy. So that let me finish this point though. And when we start to look at it from a logical standpoint, I mean to cut your wisdom, like you said.
No, you good.
From a logical standpoint, when we look at it like that, we would not ask for some of the things that we were asking. We would be more strategic to this day. And here's the reason why. If you understood, regardless of how heinous slavery was and how it affected us, what it was meant to be and what it was back then, it was the only form of currency. When it ended, it was like a $13 billion industry. Back then with inflation, we talking upwards of almost $1 trillion. It would be one of the top stocks on the U.S. stock market right now. You see what I'm saying? They got rid of it because a new system had to come. Slavery would not create an autonomous system for money. Because why? You're exchanging a body who gets sick, who can die, who can run away for a thing.
Human capital.
That's all it was. So it came to an end. You can only make them have so many babies. Now manufacturing comes about.
Well,
This is why you're important. Hold on,
It,
this is
it,
why
it
you're
was too
important.
expensive as well.
Exactly. But in the beginning, it was the best overhead you could have.
Then it became slavery just for the point of slavery.
Exactly. So even when we ended it, it was against the law to bring them over here, but it wasn't against the law to actually sell them inside the country. You can still barter slaves inside the country. So nothing happened because of moral reasons. Why do we think that these people stopped these things? Because they felt sorry for us.
Morals.
We moved on from a system that was dying, right?
Yeah.
To a system that was growing,
Yeah.
manufacturing, industry. Slavery is no longer important. Now we need to condition them so they could continue to work for us through this new system, right? How do you do that? Through all the things that they did, redlining, making us want to look like them, making us live in worse conditions than them. So that could be the thing we wish for the most. Soon as we get our hands on some money, what we do with it? We're going to try to go exemplify what we saw. We're going to go try to go buy that thing and live that lifestyle the way we saw. But then there were some other of us who had different plans. There were the girlies and things like that who came and said, you know what? Nah, we going to do this. We watched them long enough. So let's get an insurance company, just one. Let's get a bank, just one. Mm-hmm. Let's get a small grocery store, just one. And we're going to buy it from Miss Ethel and them over there. We're not buying it from over there. We're going to make sure Miss Ethel gets all the agricultural money right here. So you could put all the money you want into the neighborhood. If the money ain't staying in the neighborhood, and if we don't have the information that allow us to have a logical reason why we should keep the money in the neighborhood, right now it's only logical to us to get money and go spend it. That's the logical thing right there. You see what I'm saying? So when we go back to understanding why slavery was here, slavery, just like manufacturing and industrialism, is a system. Right? Now we going into AI, right? And what are people going to say about that, right? So check it out. What did we do when slavery ended? We were so mentally whipped and conditioned for this system that some of us fought against each other during the Civil War. So you had so-called free slaves or house workers of the North fighting against the slaves that some of them didn't, most of which didn't even want to be free.
Well, I think that's just that point right there. Again, I would rather have the real story of history.
That's right.
Peace family is 19 Keys, and yes, it is tour season. And with that being said, it is my born day, and may the 4th be with you. Today, the only thing that I want for my birthday is I want you to have a cup of coffee with me. The thing that I've been researching right now is cognitive security. How do we keep our brains sharp? How do we keep our brains safe? Not only in the digital world where it's overstimulated, destroying our focus so we can't manifest and bring things into reality, but it's also about your brain power. See, I just turned 35, and whether you turn 35, 25, 18, 16, your brain is always going through changes. We have these things called prunes in our brain, and when you're going through a pruning process, it's basically what you don't use, you get rid of, and you go through recalibration periods. Mine is currently at 35 going through a recalibration. So the way that I stimulate to make sure that my neocortex, my self-control, my focus is still at a higher level. And as I'm dealing with the world that is consistently changing everything from technology to flying cars to quantum computers to new currencies to new regimes, the whole world is happening. I need to have some focus. And what I put in myself is more important than ever today. And what you put in yourself is more important than ever too. That's why I choose adaptogenic mushrooms, lion's mane, cordyceps, and a little bit of coffee. And that gets me going, and that's my only routine. So if you want to know what to get the man that has it all, nothing. Just get yourself a cup of coffee with me, and I'll be happy. Peace.
There's an interesting case in history that goes back to Anthony Johnson. Anthony Johnson was an indentured servant who worked his way out of slavery to become a free man. He ended up getting 250 acres, right? And ended up becoming a wealthy tobacco farmer, right? This is early in the 1600s. There's a case that he sued another white slave master, right? For a slave by the name of John Kaser. In this particular case, they say, at least history is written in a way that it created the first precedents for the first lifelong slave, right? Because during that time, it was indentured servitude, so you could work off your slavery.
That's right.
And so he sued the court saying that, no, this person isn't indentured servant, but this person is my slave, right?
That's right.
Forever, essentially. And the reason why this is important as a case, because number one, it set that precedence for, right, melanated people to become slaves for lifelong and not have the ability, right, to work their way out of it. Now, don't get me wrong, and this is the thing we need to understand about history, is that there was always free blacks throughout that whole entire time, right? They owned slaves as well. They were overseers.
Yes.
And you have to understand what that bloodline is like, right? Because what we don't get is a real picture of Black America. Some of them have been, sellouts from the beginning of this whole entire time, right? Some of them were always on that side to where they were just pure capitalists like the rest of them.
Like the rest of
right?
them. That's right.
And what we don't understand is why we don't get that picture, then we don't understand that we weren't all equal during that time. You feel me?
You had Stevens.
You had the Maroons, you had Warriors, you had Freedmen, you had Seminoles, you had different people that was operating in different ways.
Yeah.
They had their own damn plantations, but you don't see that representation. And I think that representation is important because it doesn't take away the fact that we should still get reparations. But it does show that there's always this different class of Black people in America, right? And that class of Black people in America has never been for us, right? Even when you think about the construction of the Boule, which was created based on skull and bones, secret societies, that they believed that, only the talented 10 should rule the rest of America. Then you understand, okay, where the hell did they come from? Some of them were some of them free slaves.
That's right.
Right? That they believed that they were better than the rest of them that were in servitude. You feel me? And there's a lot of us, when I say us, I'm talking about, us melanated people that don't believe that we should have freedom. Everybody don't believe in reparations, right? Everybody don't believe. That's why if you want to get a true picture, you have to separate based on ethnic tribes.
Your belief and your construct gonna be based on what you was given. They can't believe what they don't understand, what they logically don't know.
We also have to end this idea that this is just all Black.
Exactly.
Right? And we all on the same team. It's not true at all, right? Same thing when you look at whites. There was whites that came over here as slaves.
That's right.
They were prisoners shipped, right, from Great Britain and Ireland and things of that nature.
Ghettos of Europe.
Yes.
Ghettos of Europe.
They didn't all come over here equally. You feel me? So, but nobody ever asked a white man, where you from? You feel me? They gonna ask a Black man, where you from?
That's right.
To make you feel displaced. Nah, what you mean? Go ask the Italian man or the Irish man where they from. Go ask them if they family came over here as slaves.
Can I give you a simpler example of what I've seen in this? And this is crazy, right? Because every example, right, is a reflection of every example. And what I mean by that is everything's a small microcosm of something else, right? So when I was in federal prison, right, and I used to go to the mess hall and eat. Now in federal prison, you have what you call cars. So if you from Oakland, you probably run the Oakland car. Right? You got the New Jersey, the New York car. Now, these cars mean that wherever you're from, because in the Fed, you're with people from different states and different cities. So you may be from New York, I'm from Philly. So when you walk into the chow hall, you see all these different cars, Philly, Baltimore, DC, maybe a couple Cali guys, and they're all Black. And they're all sitting at different tables. But then when you go into a place like I was in Fairton, where you're not down south, you're mainly on the East Coast, ain't really too much Aryan stuff, none of that type of white gang activity, right? But you see all the white guys sitting at the same table, no matter where they're from. And this is why we lose. Because we can't understand how to find a common ground, how finding a common ground is pretty much our cheat code.
You know why? Because, and I say as the primary reason why, but they've looked at whites as a privilege, right? As opportunity, as unity. When we look at the classification of Black as a punishment.
Exactly.
Right? So the association is negative because all Blacks are inferior or low, but the association with white is the idea that they're superior. So there's a privilege attached. So the idea is you would want to be white because in this construct, right, it gives you more rights and privilege and class and opportunity. Versus in this construct, the idea is that black puts you in a history of trauma and detriment, right, and slavery. So we don't look at black as a privilege, right? And as my Moorish brothers would tell you, that it's never been, right? It was a classification that doesn't allow us to have our true freedom.
That's right.
So there's the attitude that we even have around the word and this fragmented ideology that we have about what it actually means, where everybody agrees that white means privilege.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, when you get there, you're not want to be Italian or British or Irish. Oh, I'm a white man. Where the whites at?
That's right.
You know what I mean? When you get there, I'm not Muslim or Israelite or I'm black. What's up?
Yeah.
You feel me? That would make sense if we constructed it as a privilege.
Just like Jewish. I'm Jewish. You
Right.
know where they're from.
But we're not constructing it as a privilege.
Exactly.
So that's why your attitude towards it is negative. So why would I want to be with the blacks if they don't get the most benefits?
Because right now in this society we live in now, it's not a benefit.
So how do we change that?
By increasing our value. How do we increase our value? To stop trying to integrate our things into their system. So if you know this system mistreated you forever, why are you working so hard for inclusion? You see what that gets you. They just fired the Air Force the Air Force General, right? I wonder how he feels about that after so many years of trying to integrate himself in the system.
Well,
That mistreated him forever.
It's funny. Again, we don't practice DEI in our own culture. We practice gatekeeping.
That's right.
Right? Gatekeeping means that there's certain blacks that we just don't accept. You know what I mean? You have what we consider to be a radical ideology. We gatekeep certain conversations. We don't allow certain people in, right? We don't practice diversity, equity, inclusion amongst different type of black men.
Yeah.
We don't do that at all.
Exactly.
Yet we expect somebody outside of our culture to give us a privilege that we don't extend to each other, right? We don't even teach black Muslims down there in history unless it's Malcolm X, right? Though black Muslims have been throughout the thread of history in America since the beginning.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Since even the relationships with Morocco.
That's
right. But we don't teach that yet. We want diversity, equity, inclusion, but we won't practice it.
That's right.
How? How do we expect that? We don't deserve it unless we do for self. Because if I'm another people and I'm looking at you and say, bro, y'all don't even include each other in everything. Y'all don't pull up a seat at the table for diverse action plans and representation. So y'all don't even spread the dollars amongst yourselves equally. We've added more seats at the table for the ideas of LGBT, right? And diversity and inclusion than we have, right? Different representations of black men across spectrum.
Because it's that idea and that doctrine being
and
pumped.
Not only LGBT, but white women and every other woman. Before, the black family had representation of each other. And nothing matters if the black family doesn't matter.
Again, it's that doctrine that's being pumped out there that everything's going to be all right and we should all live together. Again, I have no qualm with anyone.
What's the idea? Separate but equal? Separate means I own my own. You know what I mean?
Separate means whatever it means for every other race that has manufacturing, that has
ownership,
automobiles, whatever that means. You know, even if it means, because it may mean this, it may mean us going back to the motherland and building what's there because they got the best start. Our start is coming from here. So what we're trying to do is,
I believe we should start here.
But at the end of the day, if we start here,
you could do it simultaneous. I don't think there's one way.
No, I don't think there's one way. We talked about that earlier, right? It's no specific way.
And then it's not everybody. I think it's just those who have the privilege to be able to do both. Right?
I think we need just one example, right? So like you said, we talked about only 7-8 stocks out of all the black corporations in the world that's listed on the U.S. stock market, right?
Which is the RLJ Lodging Trust, right? It's a real estate investment trust founded by Robert L. Johnson that focuses on upscale hotels. At least I'm going to name about 5.
Go ahead, do your thing.
Urban One, a media conglomerate established by Kathy Hughes, primarily targeted black audiences through radio broadcasting and digital media. You have the Carver Bank Corp., which is the holding company for Carver Federal Savings Bank, one of the largest black-owned banks in the U.S. You have Broadway Financial Corp, which is the parent company of City First Bank, which serves low to moderate income communities. You have Axum Therapeutics, a biopharmaceutical company led by CEO Dr. Harriet Tabuteau. All right, focus on central nervous system disorders. I want to look that one up. That's what
I knew you thought of that one.
I want to look that one up. But it's like,
Thought of that one.
So as we, again, and we can get back into just the psychology of money, where to start, where to go, how to shift that mindset, the wisdom of it, what are some of the practices?
I want to talk about our strict logic and how it's lost, man. And how the death of common sense took place when they created more and more laws and we accepted them. We accepted them blindly without examining for logic. So let me tell you something. When we talk about what's going to be given, when we talk about equality, when we talk about inclusion, let's just deal with that. Diversity is cool, right? Diversity don't necessarily, they don't care if we're diverse. That helps them. That keeps it perpetual. And that keeps one race from saying, I'm going to conquer every other race. You see that?
Well,
so it's like, nah.
We don't really believe in diversity as a good thing.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we would practice diversity, right? We believe in homogenous groups. That's why every single church is separate, right? They don't have a church convention at the end of the year for all churches to come together. They practice different faith groups.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? My church over here, your church over here, my church over there. It's not at the end of the year all churches get together to praise Jesus and create some kind of economic system.
And find a commonality, right?
If churches can't get together, how do you expect the congregation to get together, right? So your church down the street is separate than this church down the street, and they never do anything together at the end of the year, right? Or annually and come together to praise Jesus together. That doesn't make sense.
The church is working together.
Well, yeah, that church,
because they all get their power from the
rest.
government.
But
so that one's working.
That should be the
Still
idea.
what it's supposed to do.
If you got 10,000 churches, right? Just look at that as a very powerful organization, which represents billions of dollars. So if you got each person inside the church that preaches unity, well, then all they would have to do is get with the rest of the pastors and unify.
That's it.
Right? And then spread one singular message amongst the people as an idea. And here's the thing, though, they would have to get someone rid of that ego to think that they always know best, right? Because aristocracy is what? It's not when you have the politicians at the head. It's when you have the professionals, right? The most skilled people, the experts. And there needs to be some of that practice in our community where it's the experts that are at the head.
That's what happened to build this in the beginning.
Yes.
The war strategists went and got with the experts. You're an expert at war. You know nothing about money. You have no money and you can't go to war without none. Sit down, shut up. Let me tell you how this design is going to go.
Right.
And this is how we're going to trick them. Eventually, they're going to want to be us so bad that they going to fight for unity, equality, and all that too. But by the time they do that, we're going to be so far up on them that our system continues to be autonomous. Why? Because we just made everybody unite. Nobody wants to conquer each other no more when we know it's a total fact that we live to conquer each other. We know that. That's a universal fact. And it's always been the example of civilization, to divide or to conquer, right? To pillage and to take over and allow your greed to run rampant. So one point I want to make. When we think that the construct, like you said, move away from color, because you go sit in that room and they turn on that bright light, you're going to be surprised who you see in there. Like you said, you think these people went away, the people who actually did have slaves that look like me and you, that had wealth, you know, some of the people were the opposite of girly in them. They weren't building it based on good moral of the people, right? They were building it based on greed. Some of them mimicked their masters. Some of them came over here. We don't know the true story. What you said is very deep, because to know the truth, the real truth, minus any emotions and minus any defense,
and it's to know self.
Yes,
that's what
any
to be
biasness. Any biasness. I read the book by Sincere B. We're not niggas, right? We ain't no niggas. The one thing he said, the one thing, if you wanted to get white people and black people on the same page of peace, we need to know each other's true history. He said, to know you, for me to truly know you, it can only be God respect for you.
Right.
Because now I ruled out the noise of the people who were manipulating me into believing that you were something that you're not. I know what you truly are. You know what I truly am, regardless of what it is. We can now find a common ground for respect.
And we could rise above what's in us if we don't want that to be the continued path.
Exactly. But what keeps the chaos? The lack of truth. So
Right.
I want this point.
Well, we need to do
I
genealogy
want to say this to our
within the
people.
culture.
When you talk about them keeping this construct and keeping it the way it is and doing what they need to do to keep it the way it is, it's a guy named Robert Morris. You heard of Robert Morris? They call Robert Morris the father of America. Why? Because he's the one whose money, who was the richest man at the time in America, who backed the Revolutionary War. So he came up with all these ideas to create money so we can win that war. We won that war. But remember, our currency was crippled after that. Guess what they did with Robert Morris? They put him in jail because he couldn't pay the debt back to the debtors off money that he spent to help us win the war. That's how vicious they are. Now, if you think they got something to give to you, and they put the father of the country, the person who backed the money to give the United States their independence from Great Britain, they put him in jail after that war because he couldn't pay his debtors. So now, why did they put Robert Morris in jail? We could look at it from a
bankrupt and was in prison for debt.
For debt.
For 1798 to 1801. And I just want to add this. The root of the word bankrupt comes from an Italian phrase bancarrota, meaning when a lender would fail, right? Where they did business was usually on a bench, right? And they would break the bench, right, when they failed. And then that's what became known as the term of bankrupt.
Wow.
You feel me?
Wow.
In this system, America is bankrupt.
They are.
You know what I mean? The money lending practices are broken.
Yeah.
Right? The promises are broken. Right? And, you know, the idea that bankruptcy can be utilized,
yes, sir,
right? Once you go through that public, if you will, embarrassment. You feel me? There is get back. But getting to that point is that we should be educated on the root of all things.
That's right.
That deal with this country that we're in or this system that we're in.
That's right.
Then we need to be educated on the new money system.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? The new money matrix.
Yeah.
Right? If we don't know the new money, because that's the old money matrix. The new world that we live in, right? It's too complex for us to still use cowrie shells.
That's right.
Right? And grains and things of that nature. Even though on a large scale, that's how countries still trade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're still trading based on commodities as
That's right.
money, right? Countries that have oil and grain and wheat, right? That's the futures market.
That's right.
So that's still a system. It's just not a day-to-day transactional system. I can't go to the store and get a pair of shoes with 20 grains of wheat.
Exactly.
They're not going to take that as transferable currency. Right. But we now live in a system that's so complex that these old systems are outdated, right? Many people, and they're arguing within the government now, essentially with the way they're doing things, is whether the Constitution is outdated, right? Because the world is so complex that the founding fathers, right, did not create that particular Constitution for the complexity of the world or the population of the world. We live in globalization, right? They created that for local and national ideas.
Exactly.
Not globally, right? So now that we live in this world that's borderless, and we have to do business all around the world, we have to now interact in a new system. And that's when we go to a cashless society.
Yeah.
Right? If you go to Genghis Khan's grandson, Kublai Khan, he was the first to create a currency that was backed by nothing but the threat of death. Right? So you have to use my currency. You know what I'm saying? So
that's a hell of a currency.
You know what? I think I'm gonna use the currency. I
heard about some guys in the street that had that kind of currency.
Yeah.
Hey, you sell this or, you know what's going to happen.
It eventually ended up failing, but it worked for a time period. You feel me? And it's funny because China was the first to create a currency such as that. And they were also the first to go digital, right? Switzerland was the first to say that they're going to end up going digital, right? And working towards to be a completely cashless society. The world is working towards that. Number one, is more efficient for them to be able to track transaction and control financial systems.
That's right.
Right? Which is dangerous within itself. So with everything, there's a benefit and a detriment. the opportunity is in between the ugly phase of transition, you can interject your own ideas before the mold, the cement, right, is firm. This is why studying the financial system and these new technologies, I say decentralization is the dream of the revolutionary.
That's right.
It's the dream of the revolutionary.
But it's the nightmare system.
Right. So therefore, they want to wait till they can regulate it, till there's no more revolutionary. Then they say use this technology. When you don't understand it is when you want to, right? When it's easy and it's normal and it's simple, that means they have control over how you're going to use it. Decentralization in the form that we all have voting power and we don't need a corporation. The people get the vote and have power. Wouldn't you want that? Right? Do you want these guys to own it or do you want to own it? Right? As a family, we can create a trust. We can create a DAO. We all vote where our money goes. We don't have to trust no individual in the family. Nobody can steal. That's simple. That can be set up overnight. It don't require 30 days, 50 days, 100 days. Yeah, let's do it. What do you mean? Parallel networks? We talk about the banks. You mean you guys don't, you think the system is rigged? Well, here's these tools, create your own system. Let's see how self-sufficient you are. Or you can complain about the way we use in our system.
That's right.
Right? That's up to y'all. But one makes you an owner. You know what I mean? One keeps you in our system under our control. Right? Listen, right now we have voting issues. We're talking about what is going to be the next 4 years politically. Who knows? It's going to be crazy, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? There can be another president. So is the idea to make the Democratic Party stronger, to try to bring them back from the deficit that they're in, even though over the last 20 years they had 16 years in control? Or the idea is to say, well, the system has failed and everybody should go independent or create new parties? Why wouldn't a revolution start during the revolution? If we're going in the most radical times right now, then you have to do radical things.
That's right.
If the bank is failing you, go into decentralized finance. You can't get loans, let's go into peer-to-peer loaning, right? Why not? What's the problem with that? For every one of these problems, there's a solution. But if we're not utilizing, matter of fact, they just made it essentially legal to create your own currency and distribute amongst each other.
That's right.
Right? Now,
I mean, that's essentially what Bitcoin is.
Yeah, sure, we can go to Target and spend the money, but what if we just created our currency? All the churches got their own currency.
I like what you said. Instead of focusing on putting the energy towards trying to take down a behemoth like Target, right? By not supporting their products or not supporting
which is a start.
When what we could do is use that same energy to just say, let's ramp up on buying our own products.
Isn't that what the Republicans say? Get it on your own merit?
That's right.
You know what? I like that.
I love it.
I like it. Well, let's do it then.
I mean, accountability, spirituality, it ain't a physical character.
I don't think
know that, right?
My Republican brother shouldn't be mad. The MAGA brother shouldn't be mad. They said get it on your own merit. Well, yeah, I champion that. Let's create our own parallel existing systems. Then how fast can we get that done? Does it require 50 years? No. We have better tools than the founding fathers had. You know what I mean?
How about let's start with this before we even get the systems? How about
the systems are already there. We just not using them.
Yeah, the systems are there. But I mean in terms of us building our own. There's other things that I feel got to come before that, right?
I think they coexist. So we have educators such as yourself. You understand the money system. You can teach a person stocks, options, futures, right? They can get a knowledge and a mastery over it. We would have the decreased spending, increased education, which gives us awareness and power, right?
Yeah.
So simultaneously, while we create a mass re-education of our people, we educate them on the existing system, but then we have to be integrating education in what the new system is.
Yes.
Here's the thing. You get the opportunity to teach a young mind once, right? They got about 6 years for that mind that's like formed to start developing their own thinking. We have Generation Beta. If we start teaching Generation Beta, this idea of this new money system, right? To where it's decentralization. They don't have to uproot old ideas to understand new ones. They only have the new ideas, right? Embedded in the way they think. We teach them not just Western economics, right? But we teach them Eastern practices as well. We have a whole generation to where if you want to build in the future, you build it in the young minds. So when they grow up, they're masters of a new world.
How about we do it just like they did it? How about we do it And our people don't have nothing, no say-so about it. The
The-
forefathers are not George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and all those people. We understand who Mount Rushmore should be. It should be the money faces, not the war faces.
Yeah.
Because the war can't go to war without no money. You got to buy bullets.
Rockefellers and them up there.
Exactly. That's who should be up there if we're talking about telling the truth about this system. Now, they built their system with no care about how the people felt. Just conform to it because it's better for you. And guess what? You know what privilege you get? That imaginary illusion that you are more superior than everybody else. When you're not. You're not of the 1%. You just benefit off what 1% built because of your skin color.
Yeah.
Richard Pryor said it best. He said, your white neighbor ain't got no more power than you do. He lived where you live. He said, but they put this illusion out there so they can keep you down.
Right.
So then the guy asked Richard Pryor, so what can we do? He said, you know me, Rich, I'm white. I'm not racist. I want to see the betterment of black people. He said, yeah, I believe that. He said, well, what can we do to get inside that system and change it? He said, well, how you going to do that? He said, if you get inside the system, that's only because you look familiar to what people who inside the system look like.
Right.
So in order for you to get into the system, you got to become one of the components of the system. And now you just, what? Now you just succumb by the system. Same thing will happen with that Air Force, that general, right? He wanted to be a part of the system. Now you hit your ceiling. It doesn't matter if you're a president. Are you one of the 4 people or 7 people who started the Federal Reserve? I don't care about Obama being no president. That's no power. That's policy. He pushed policies. He pushed pins for people who decided on something.
Well, and especially that's at a federal level.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Your local levels with your mayors and your congressmen and your aldermen and right, city council members and school boards, right? That's where you infiltrate to have the most power. So
right.
If we constructing a reality to where we care about what's happening locally in our environments and where those budgets, right, are being decided, then that's where you create more consciousness and awareness on that level, right? Because that's where you can start seeing immediate change. You take people that you believe in and you install them into positions so that when they're voting on measures, right, or where the city budget is going and where the future of that city is going, then you have direct control. The president don't care about what's going on in your city. He don't know what's going on in your city.
He didn't care what was going on in his own city. He couldn't stop them murders.
That's like looking at, you got the CEO of a major company, right? I'm talking about a huge multinational company, corporation. They don't care about what's going on in the local departments. No, they don't know. No. It's the relationship you have with the manager there in corporate, that right there.
Exactly.
That's going to have the most of. You don't need to talk to the CEO to get change.
And this is what
He's going to create major policy changes.
We don't have to convince everybody that they need to think like us. What we need to do is design systems for them. You just said it. You said what happened was these people allow better thinkers in there. Yo, let's get the top percentage of talent and let's help them. Let's get them to help us figure this out.
Right.
And this is what we need to do. Our best thinkers, regardless of difference in plight, right?
Right.
Or not even plight, because all our plight's the same.
Yeah, the plight the same.
The plight is
the solution is going to be different.
Maybe the path to get there is different.
But there's also more routes to freedom than one. And so the idea of somebody might say, well, listen, man, let's do leap options.
That's right.
We can make the most money, whether America's going up or down, right? Somebody say, let's do crypto. We say, that's fine. Somebody say, let's do future. Somebody say, let's do land.
How about somebody say, we'll design a system like they did called the 401k, 403b, and a pension where you don't even have no say-so over it. They just convince you, hey, you know me, right? You know I ain't going nowhere. You know I pay your check every week, right? All right, well, listen, give me $30 out of your check every week. I'm going to put it somewhere for you. And I'm going to match you. And, now you looking at this like a benefit. My job love me. Again, that slave master mentality, right?
Yeah, that's taking master systems, right? And putting yourself at the helm of them. And taking those blueprints and constructing your world.
So now we create like systems for trading. We don't have to teach people how to trade no more. Log on, access this particular thing, and you already access the database. So just like you got a 401k that's working autonomously, now you have a system that you tapping into and you're able to trade on a massive scale.
Right.
These are just some things.
And matter of fact, what you do, even to add on to that, you can customize tests to figure out who's going to be the better traders.
Exactly.
Right? And so when you do that, then you say, okay, if these are the better traders, let's create systems around them, right, to copy trade and create automation within that trading system, because everybody's not going to be a good trader, right? So therefore, you don't want everybody trading. You want them to be freed up to do what they're going to be best at, right? Whatever their gift is.
I don't want you speaking too much about trading because you got to come on the real money experience.
Oh, talk to me.
So
man.
the real,
Give me the real money experience right now.
So the real money experience is this. Basically, I came up with an idea, right?
Mm.
Instead of me having to teach millions of people who sometimes it's hard to convince, right? It's a lot of us that need this information. How about we create a live streaming program? I like my brother Kasana. I like the way he do his thing, right? I like his come up, period. So how about we got a system where you're looking at me like the Kasana program, except I'm coming to you talking to you about real financial education. I'm making real trades. I'm bringing Keys on here for a segment to tell you about his real money experiences, both bad and good, because we learn from each other's experiences, right? So these are real money experiences. I notice there's a lot of people out there that are professing things that they have no clue about.
Yes, sir.
So now it's time for a real money experience.
Real
It's time
money
for
experience.
people
I like
to
that.
experience what money really is and not what we thought it to be. So now you're going to come in, you're going to see me and my brother Jamil snatching money on a 5-minute time frame, which means we set up our laptop and we just made $2,000 in 5 minutes while everybody else trying to figure out what to put on for clothes at work. You know, what outfit I'm gonna wear at work today. No, we passed that already. In fact, we ain't even take off our house coat or our house shoes. We ain't get dressed yet. We made that long before you even thought about punching in at work. So designing this system of the real money experience is not only to ignite that in the youth, because my thing is the youth. So it's gonna be for all ages, because that's who we gotta spark this in. If we don't get into things like you saying, design of communication processes, design of computerized processes and digitized processes, right? If we don't encourage the next kid to build a car, we're going to stay lost. We don't have our names tied to things that hold this country together. Manufacturing, industry, right? So once they employ the system, that's the seed of it all, right? The economic system. Now you build industries on top of that system. So this is why we believe that Jews have power, that we don't, because they control industries over here, but they don't control the construct. You see what I'm saying? The construct is autonomous. These industries, manufacturing, automobile, communication, what did Elon get in and solidify himself in? Transportation, isn't that a part of infrastructure?
Mm-hmm.
Space travel, isn't that a part of infrastructure? Energy, isn't that a part of infrastructure? Or how about that highway he's going to build? Isn't that infrastructure? Everything he did, he has his own electrical grid. He's going to have the biggest network of satellites with Stargate, right? What do you think he's integrating himself in? The systems.
Mm-hmm.
He don't care about the industries.
Which also means you can't be titans of the systems by using the system. It's impossible.
It's not. That's what Richard Pryor said. He said you can't come looking like an agent of the system.
You can.
You gonna turn it around.
The most radical thing that people could do that don't agree with a system is opt out.
That's it.
And create parallel systems, because it is the consent, right, that gives them the power. So it's saying that, damn, I have to use your social media platform. I have to use your bank. So then I have to complain and beg you to change things about it so I have a better user experience.
That's right.
Or, you know what? I don't want to use your system at all. I'm going to just create my own and use my own, right? What they're banking on is hoping that you never take this idea of not using theirs, right, and creating your own.
Exactly.
Even though over long term, the greatest benefit is creating your own. Long term, that is the only solution.
That's right.
Right? There is no solution of freedom inside a system that you believe is inherently corrupt and owned. Vanguard, BlackRock, own everything. Right? Going back to that case, Dodge versus Ford Motor Group. It was in 1919. Right? The landmark case that defined shareholder primacy, aka fiduciary duty. So these Dodge brothers with John and Horace, they were minority shareholders in the Ford Motor Company. They sued Henry Ford, arguing that prioritizing social good over shareholder profits was a violation of fiduciary duty. He wanted to reduce car prices and increase worker wages instead of maximizing shareholders' dividend.
Keep
The
up.
Dodge brothers holding 10% of the Ford stock believe Ford was wrongfully withholding profits that should have been distributed to shareholders. Ford admitted that he wanted to use profits to benefit society, not just enrich shareholders. So the Michigan Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Dodge brothers, stating that a corporation's primary duty is to maximize shareholder value.
Yeah.
Corporate directors cannot use company profits solely for social or charitable purposes if it undermines shareholder return, right? So Ford had to issue a special dividend to shareholders from within profits. So what does that mean? That means that if, number one, Vanguard and BlackRock are majority shareholders, and of course you break that down to multiple other entities that own mostly all of the companies on the stock market. If it doesn't benefit them, I don't care if it benefits you. If it doesn't benefit them, right, then they can't do it.
That's right.
You may want a company to do something. They legally cannot do social good unless they can prove it as a basis for the benefit of the shareholders. So again, if you're going to a strategy, you have to have understanding of the law.
Yep.
You have to have understanding of economics and finances so that you know the best way to strategize, because you can affect the bottom line of a company, but you have to affect the sentiment of the shareholder so that they understand that if we don't do this, then we don't get paid more.
Exactly.
So you find your benefit in your leverage of understanding that knowledge. Now, that's one way. The other way is directly saying, let's create our own.
That's right.
Right? Otherwise, there's nothing you can do inside a system because it does not benefit you, right? And it is only power and money is only flowing to shareholders.
That's right.
And fiduciary duty. That's 1919. That's one of them 19 keys, man. You got to understand. I'm going to find them numbers, man. I'm going to find them numbers, man.
Hey, listen, it's funny though, because we talked about the Bankruptcy Act, right? After they did that to Robert Morris, that's when the Bankruptcy Act, that's what freedom from jail. Actually, the Bankruptcy Act came out and they said, yo, listen, we're actually slowing up the process if we're throwing people in jail because of debt. That makes no sense. If that person is in jail, he can't pay you nothing. The forefathers thought this was cool, but then somebody from an economic standpoint that understand money came and said, what sense do that make?
Right.
How are we making money off that money? So you mean to tell me somebody borrowed my money, they owe me, and I'm just supposed to write them off, and now I'm out of that? No, because the time that we live in right now, in these 16, 17, 1800s, money is scarce, and resources is too. We haven't even found out what to truly do with it, how to maximize it yet, right? We're just learning what to do with all this stuff we got.
Right.
That's why everything got synthetic over time, because they learn how to multiply everything, even the money itself. Get some of the keys. Keys gonna borrow some, put interest on keys. Keys gonna go buy something. Guess what? Whatever he buy from, that merchant's gonna now feel like he need to grow. So guess what he's gonna do? He's gonna take that money, put some in the bank, and borrow some more, right? And then before you know it, there's so much liquidity pumped out there, right? Now, who you got? You got the central bank who controls everything. They're gonna come in and say, okay, let's jerk the strings a little bit, right? They got the yo-yo to the interest rates. They're gonna go sell all those securities back to those banks that they bought, and that's gonna bring the interest rate back up, inflation back up. Why? Why is it gonna do that? Because now you just took the money away from the bank. So now when these businesses come back to borrow, there is none. Or maybe you lower the reserve. So to lower the reserve is this. I got to keep 10% of whatever Keys just gave me. He's my only customer in my bank. If he gave me 1,000, I got to keep 100 of this on reserve by law from the Federal Reserve, right? Now, the other 900 I'm going to lend out. I'm going to give some to Jay. Jay going to go buy a car. The car dealer going to borrow, and it's reciprocal. You see what I'm saying? Where does the Fed get this money from, the bottles, to sell those securities or bottle securities? They print it out of thin air. They don't go into their reserve and take the money out. No, they add to the reserve by printing ghost dollars, putting it in each one of those banks' accounts, whoever they want to buy the treasuries from. So you got two things. You got the government, you got the central bank. Two separate entities, right? So the government is running the debt ceiling up. They the ones borrowing money, making sure people keep their Social Security, right? They're running the debt ceiling up. It's up to the Federal Reserve to control that thing through monetary policy. So they always say, if we default on our debt, we hit. No, we're not. Because that's just the government defaulting on their debt. People know we got the Federal Reserve who stand outside of that, man. They can step in any time and cover that debt. So it's all illusionary money, right? And it's all being made off thin air. So this is the way they learned how to multiply the money. If they could not multiply the money, then that means that the next war that takes place, the Iraq war, the Vietnam war, almost broke us. But before then, money was autonomous. Why? Couple things happened. Roosevelt removed it from the gold standard. So now, what happened during World War I? Those countries went broke because everybody was cashing in their resources for gold, cashing in their gold for resources. So now that money's no longer tied to gold, right? And it's tied by the promise of a strong economy. Now we get to keep our reserves for when things get bad. But if everybody else don't have the same quality of economy we do, can they speak the same language? No. We got the biggest gold reserves in the world, bro.
Do we? Because they saying that is
Yes, we do.
they trying to imply that we ain't got no gold.
Yes, we do.
Why are they trying to imply we ain't got no gold?
Because Trump thinks somebody been shaving a piece off every brick and he going to go check. And that's deep that you said.
But how would that?
Hold on.
How would that
Hold on,
benefit
Key, don't break
if
this
we
wisdom.
didn't have
You want to hear this one. You want to
Yeah.
hear this one. It's funny you just said that. What they're doing. They're discovering that people got Social Security to their 140. They're discovering that maybe
Which is not a real discovery.
Exactly, which is not a real
Programming
discovery.
language.
Exactly, programming language, right? It's not like they went and did it, like you said. So now, if the gold is attached to them,
do they actually have the gold, and why are they
Oh no,
checking for the gold?
they have the gold, but these guys are checking within those systems for glitches because they know the glitches take place. They're not glitches. They're not the whole money system is on cloud smoke, man. It's all autonomous. It's digital numbers.
Yeah.
Once they were able to remove it from something that you can actually track like legal tender, they were able to do this.
Peace, family. It's two things that you need right now in order to win in life ultimately. You need your mind right and you need your money right. And that's the challenge that I put to you. For the mind right part, I can handle that. Right? I can get you thinking optimally to where you can succeed in any environment in life. For the money right part, that's when I got Wise Money Santino, and they're going to teach you about something called mini futures, to where you learn how to master the market and move like the market makers. This will allow you to be able to make money in any market. I was always taught, do not chase money. You create value and money comes to you. The way you become more valuable is through learning. When you develop a new skill, a skill that nobody can take away from you, you can make money regardless of what's happening in the market. There's always something being traded. Right now, we're over trading our time trying to make money, when we should be developing our mind and utilizing our skills to make money. Wise Money Santino is somebody who's been doing this for a living, being able to pull money out the market because of the skill set that nobody can snatch away. So, I want to challenge you to a VIP experience to where you can experience live trading. You can develop these skills and you can master the market like the market makers do. Make sure you tap in to the Mind Right, Money Right Challenge, 19 Keys. And I'll see you there. Peace.
Speaking of automation, so it was an economist, I believe his name by the name of Darren. He wrote the Robot Apology, and is essentially looking at, I think it's like 50 to 80% of wage inequalities comes from automation. So what it did is it disrupts the idea that it's China or globalization and tax the billionaires when perhaps it really should be taxing the robots, right? And it's something that people now looking at because wage suppression happens through automation, right? So instead, you would then look at, okay, the more robots that a person have and the more automation that they're implementing, maybe we should be putting the taxes on that instead of the people, because they're the ones taking the jobs. The scapegoat is looking at globalization, right? Looking at China, things of that nature. So by the time the people figure it out, you lost your job because we're consistently creating more efficient processes of automation, and they don't have to pay humans as much money anymore.
That's right.
So while you're being scapegoated to look at these issues, is the reality of it is we should be taxing the robots.
That's right.
Right?
Or the programs that's
Right.
creating the robots.
And if those people that are running the government really cares for the people, then they would say yes. Because why? You go get you a robot worker, right? They not paying no taxes.
That's right.
But they just replaced the human worker, right? That was paying taxes on their income.
Yeah.
Right? So instead, I believe that, okay, cool, y'all want to replace some of the population with robots. Well, we should also be taxing them goddamn robots as well. See, now that's thinking ahead, right? Because by the time people figure this out, goddamn 50% of the workforce is going to be replaced. You're going to have trillionaires, right, that have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of robots working for them, and they're getting free labor, right? Besides like repair and things of that nature. But then those robots are paying for themselves. But then that displaces a large percentage of the population, right? So now, instead of saying taxing the income of the billionaire themselves, it's the business practices that's replacing and automating these jobs away. And it's been doing that for a very long time, right? When we talk about factories and things of that nature. But now we at this point in time that if you don't start taxing the AI,
tax the billionaire
and the robots,
don't tax the billionaire. Get the billionaire to pay you more.
Right. So therefore, because eventually they're going to have to roll out some kind of universal basic income. Now, here's the thing. 80% of the jobs we have now, they did not exist in the past.
That's right.
Right? 80% of jobs will be in the future won't exist. But the greatest skill and the greatest development right now a person can have is decrease their scrolling and increase their knowledge, right, of artificial intelligence and automation.
Money and AI, man.
Money and AI.
Money and AI. And like he said, get right with your God.
Get right with God. And then y'all learn some law and things of that nature.
Yeah, we definitely got to know
so
that. But
it's like that's where human optimization should be going towards. Because right now these children are being mastered by AI. The more you use it, the more the system learns you. Right? And as the system is learning you, they're learning how to clone you so that you're not necessary. Because it thinks like you, so why did it need you?
Yeah.
Right? So as we're using the system, we're teaching it how to replace us.
That's right.
Right? And so this is where we have to become better stewards of the way we utilize the technology.
Exactly.
We should be taking and putting these models locally on our computer so that data is not going back, right, to these companies, teaching it how to replace us. These AI models that you get access to for free or for fee, they're learning you because they need human beings to train it. So we're training the models as we use it.
And all they're doing is tapping into the AI, open AI source, right? We can do that ourselves.
Right. And they training human. So what they're doing, they're training to learn how to replace human population.
Yeah.
Right. Don't get me wrong. Right now, there's not enough people who are mastering AI. Right. So AI is out there, but the people that's going to be the most advanced in the future are the ones that's really learning it to a T. They understand these systems. They have system knowledge. They understand and analyze data. They like right now you got AI with deep research. All of them are passing out these search models. You got Anthropic with Claude Sonnet 3. Right, you got Perplexity, you got DeepSeek, right? You got SoundHound. DeepSeek creates a whole entire profile. You got all of these, but you should be learning. Number one, you can go and create. They got what they call Replit, to where you can automatically create apps on there. It's about you having a mastery of it because your job processes and skills right now, they're learning you to figure out how to replace you. So what you is trying to do is stay above the tool to learn how to use it.
That's right.
It's not, again, it goes back to the whole thing. It's not that it has to replace you, right? But if you're not updating yourself, because AI goes to what they call the knowledge refresh. If you go use DeepSeek, I think its cutoff date is in like 2023. If you try to use it right now and you ask it a question about Donald Trump, it say Donald Trump ain't president because it's in the past. It's the same thing with people. People don't go through a knowledge refresh, right? Mm-hmm. So your knowledge cutoff date, last time you learned something, last time you went to school and got a degree. But if I give me an AI model that was cut off in 1995, what good is it?
Exactly.
It's not trained on a world that is. And that's how human beings are. Their knowledge is cut off and they need a knowledge refresh to be updated in time, so they can actually be useful. So when you go to organizations and the people that work for these organizations, you actually need to test them to see where they knowledge cut off. So activists, right, certain leaders, politicians, like, are you even updated in the time right now to see if you're the best to serve us in this time?
That's right. That's right. So we were speaking about Elon and them, and I just wanted to make the point of how they're pretty much
attempting to rip the fabric out the system.
For sure.
Because we have to understand this.
That's what the Doge do.
But they're both not from traditional means of wealth in this country. Trump's fathers don't trace back to anything, any wealth in this country. They got it however they got it. Elon's not even from this country. He's originally from South Africa. He's a Canada nationalist.
Yeah, Pops has money.
Right? So he comes from a different wealth line than here. They're looking at that wealth line, these two on the spectrum dudes, and they're saying, we need to rip this fabric out because it's not ours. Why do you think they're going against the IRS? When you ever seen a president come in and say, I'm going to dismantle the IRS?
Well, he going after everybody that came after him.
No. It ain't just that.
Well, I mean, I'm saying, it's what you're saying, but I'm saying it's
he wants to destroy the federal government.
Additional.
Anybody that could have came after him or his money, he wants to dismantle them systems, but it ain't about him and his money.
Well, he want to get you to distrust the system as well so he can replace it with one that's loyal to him.
If I'm a trillionaire within the system, how rich would I be if I design my own and get everybody to conform to it?
At that point, it ain't even about money.
Exactly.
It's just power.
It's just power.
There's not another dollar amount.
Meyer Rothschild owned the whole Europe and was single-handedly behind every war. It's so real. He got ran out of Germany when he was younger, went and found his success in other parts of Europe. But guess what? Guess who money was indirectly tied to the gold that Hitler was selling after he defeated and ran those Jews up out of there, ravished them for all their belongings. Guess what? The biggest Jew in the world was even indirectly buying his own people's gold. Who else was buying it? J.P. Morgan and them. You had to. And then they turned around and had the Olympics right after that. So y'all got to understand what we dealing with. They're playing on a different level than us. Step out of your emotions so you can start hearing some of the things that Keys and these other brothers say, because our emotions block us. And emotions come in more than one way. They come in pride. They come in envy. They come in jealousy. Those are all emotions.
Pride comes before the fall.
Exactly. So now we're so proud of being black, talking about all these things that we started. I'm not proud of that because for me, it shows me how bad we were at playing Monopoly. Don't keep pointing to me about things that were ravished from us or taken from us or we gave up.
Well, when you don't have nothing, then you seek pride in the one thing that you can control, which was identity versus ownership. If I come from a family that owns oil fields, well, my pride is in the fact that we own these things.
That's right.
Not the fact that I'm a white man, right? My pride would be in the fact that my family is powerful. They have class, right? Things of that nature. It wouldn't be my identity. It'll be my family and our ownership and what we've constructed and what we created. When the least you have and the less power you have, the more identity becomes more powerful.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's the one thing you can have pride in. Right? So when you see, you start to see that in society, that you start to get identitarianism, where people start identifying based on a constructs of identity. And then we got Bitcoiners. That's an identity. Right? You got people that are Californians. That's an identity. People that say, well, I'm black, I'm white, identity, right? All of these identity constructs is so that you can have pride in something, right? But when you have money, right, the pride that you have is through accomplishment, right? It's through execution. It's through ownership, right? It's through your family's history and legacy. So this idea of consistently, you create. And this is where low-level content comes in. Low-level content is a psyop to keep people disconnected through divisive identitarianism. You feel me? And so if I can keep you focusing on nothing, if I got you looking at the news every day and the news is showing a picture of the world that's negative, then your picture of the world in your mind is negative.
Immediately.
Then if you're taking short burst information, then everything you think is in short bursts. Never long form, never in depth, never paying attention. Never becoming a man or a woman who can actually think through a process, go step by step, and put it into action. So guess what happens? We in the attention economy. People can't pay attention. They got so much information overload. Guess what they can't do? They are not willful anymore. So when something's hard, they don't have the will to do it because they're seeking pleasure. They're seeking only their passions, right? So, okay. Now I can give you a dangerous tool, but you're not going to be willful enough to master it. So I can give you AI, I can give you tech, I can give you crypto, I can give you decentralization, blockchain, right? You're going to put all those down. You're going to focus on Afrocentricity. You're going to focus on Pan-Africanism. You go fight for holidays and civil rights. What about all these tools that's right there to just build your own thing?
Yeah.
Right?
You're gonna fight.
Let's ignore that.
To theirs.
So you can't tell me that our fight for equality, right? And the energy that we put into it. I mean, just from an energy, because money is energy, right? I look at your team as time, energy, attitude, money, right? The time that we put into it, that's our wealth we can't get back. And we can create quantum leaps through time right now. The energy that we put into it, oh my God, the passion, the anger.
It's still resonating on us
pain,
today, and it's still
emotions.
Yeah.
Then the attitude, which is not informed by us, is informed by the media. So he who controls media controls how you see, view, and feel about yourself and your brother, right? And so then your money is connected to all those things. So when you're spending your money, and if your self-esteem is low,
this is in the background.
then now you're spending your money to try to feel better.
Yep.
Instead of, I already feel good. I'm already come from a place of pride. I'm a guy. So only thing I need is just to build my own system, that's right, live with my family and construct a good life, right? And to wage war against those who wage against me. We have to become the authors of peace and war.
That's right.
And that balance is what allows us to understand how to operate in this world, right? So yes, I understand the money system, but I also understand spiritual system.
That's right.
Right? And we connect that to our righteousness so that we have abundance. And it's not just the idea of balance, right? From, a 50-50. I've talked to a good sister before this, and I say balance, if I make me a Supermind coffee, some best coffee in the world, right? If I got that coffee and I want to balance it out, I'm not going to put 50% sugar in there.
That's right.
No, that's going to kill me. I'm going to put a little bit that balances it out.
Mm-hmm.
Most people think about balance as 50-50.
No, it's not.
It's not how it works. You have an abundance of something, you balance it out. So I'm a man, I have an abundance of masculinity. I balance it out with a sprinkle of femininity.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or the feminine energy. I might do art and expression and things of that nature, go into nature, right? But I don't need 50%. That's not how it works.
Yeah, because that changes you. Now.
Right.
Now
So
you're more than just
yeah, that's toxic.
Yeah,
You feel
yeah,
me?
exactly.
If a woman got 50% masculinity, I don't want it.
No,
That's toxic.
Absolutely not.
So if I put 50% of that sugar in my coffee, it's now toxic.
That's right.
So we have to learn how to balance things out so that we have wealth, which is wealth is having an abundance of assets.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want just civil rights. We want inalienable human rights
Exactly.
that can't be taken away from us. And we're not asking nobody to do nothing. So even if DeSantos is talking about let's get rid of property taxes, sounds like a great thing to champion, but it don't matter if you don't own property.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
I don't want to hear stuff from people that don't understand economics and don't understand.
That's what economic literacy and financial literacy come from.
I don't want to hear from a politician who got a background in engineering talk about what type of economic policy should be put in place in terms of taxes.
A lot of them are
and
broke,
stuff like that.
and they champion being broke.
Exactly. They champion being broke.
And I get the idea because we thought that poor righteous teacher, right, was talking about, being poor in the ways of the world. You know what I'm saying? Not being poor financially, right? So no, the world doesn't pay me. I'm not rich in the ways of the world. Right? I'm poor in the ways of the world. I'm rich in the ways of God.
That's right.
You feel me? But that also should come with financial stability, right? Because why wouldn't you have the ability to master money, right? And financial knowledge if you consider yourself to be a higher divine being? That doesn't make sense. So no, our politicians should not be poor. Our civil servants should not be poor. They should not be working check to check because you can't think abundantly for the people if you in survival mode.
Exactly.
Right? So this is why those who believe in, private business, of course, you could look at the Nancy Pelosi's, you feel me? She should be running the sovereign wealth fund, you feel me, for America, because she gonna make sure he gets some money off it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But in our culture, we have to have a abundance of righteousness, right? And we got to balance that out with money. So we're funding our righteousness.
That's right.
Right now we have an abundance of money. We do have a lot of money. It's evident by the fact that we're consuming everybody else's products.
Bro,
They know we got.
Imagine if we just took some time to capture some of that. 'Cause,
Yeah.
right. That's deep what you just said. We get the abundance of money. The money's circulating.
Oh, we got
It just ain't stopping
We
nowhere.
paid.
It just ain't stopping nowhere and being rerouted to something that can multiply and be brought and
There's-
bring it back.
There's
you know?
nothing that we can't fund ourselves right now.
Bro, we
There's
$3
nothing.
trillion. What, 3 trillion, 4 trillion?
That was something like that.
And look, that's not the
I don't
ghost
need
money.
pocket watch
listen,
black people. I know y'all get money.
Hey, and you know what's crazy about that too? What's crazy about that too? We quick to talk about how much we'll show you things, right? But who walks around here and say, "Yo, Keys, look at my bank account."
Right, that's silly.
Want to see my bank account?
That's silly.
You see what I'm saying?
We shouldn't even. That should not be the focus, and it's more so about what value am I creating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if here's this idea that we devalue each other because if you're not getting, and here's the thing, I don't think you have to have a lot of money as a metric of accomplishments. Again, we get away from the number system.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to know how much money you're making, right? To listen to you because you know something that I don't know. I know you have a value and I can learn from you and I can bow down to what I know is the time that you put in to develop that knowledge.
Yeah.
And this is where we fail a lot, is the lack of appreciation of the process and the experiences that other people have.
That's right.
I know that you've studied futures, right? I know that you went to prison for a case, studied law, right? And which allowed you to beat your case from going from 20 years to 5 years to get out and change your life. I've never done that. So that means that I need to learn something from you that I have not experienced. What does that do? It gives me wealth because it saves me time. The time I would have had to experience doing that, right? I can't afford. So you giving me that wealth of time back by giving me your knowledge and condensing that into concepts and lessons,
Yes.
right? That's communion of how we share time, right? And how we spread wealth to each other. So wherefore we can make leaps. And so it is the appreciation of the process right now.
Yeah.
I travel around the world, right? With the organizing people to teach and educate and lead. I am what you will consider to be an advisor. Behind the scenes, I'm advising athletes, celebrities, world leaders, politicians, all kind of different people. You don't need to see everything that I do. But when people don't see it, they act like it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
What is connected to that? If you a thinker, then you would take time to think critically. Well, damn, mama, how much all that traveling cost? Right? Well, the Keys is not getting funded by outside entities. That means that I must be investing all my dollars to do these things.
Yeah.
Right? When we go on tour, we invest. When we got a team, my brother Amechi and Steve and Lona and Solomon, and then my sisters and brothers and everybody working. That means that also we got to learn media.
Yeah.
What is the time it takes to learn that and to get good at it? Right? We have to manage our own money. Right? We have to go into all of these meetings, create connections, network.
So it's better to have somebody in place that could do all of that because we cut down in that quantum
exactly.
you're talking about.
But it's like when we look at each other, think about the process that is required, right? To bear the fruit, right? What are you rooted in, right? The branches of knowledge you have to learn and develop. It forces me to appreciate you. So that's why for me, because I've been through so many different things, I've been through bad business relationships. We talk about money experience. When I was building out the BWO, I think it was the greatest idea because it helped spark the financial literacy movement that we have today. We taught thousands and thousands of students. We was giving away crypto at that time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Teaching people futures, trading, options, stock at a time where a lot of people was like, man, they ain't believe in options.
Exactly.
You feel me? They was like, man, you teaching that's gambling. Then now they teaching it themselves.
That's right.
So it was beautiful because we was able to push the envelope forward. But greed comes into a factor. That's why understanding money and greed, you start understanding human nature.
That's right.
You work with the wrong people sometimes, or sometimes it's the right people, wrong time. They too immature to handle money because it's the first time that they getting money, so they do things the wrong way.
Yeah.
Then you might ignore red flags. Well, maybe I should have seen that, right? Maybe I was too money hungry and didn't see that. If I would have seen that, then maybe I should have averted.
Exactly.
Right? But the thing about life is that when you do anything great, you are taking great risk.
That's right.
Which comes with the opportunity of great failure.
And you're also pulling from the greatness of something else.
Right. But great failure comes with lessons. So now guess what? I'm never going to do it like that ever again. Now I get to do it better. What you do is you want to hire people that have failed, right?
Yeah,
Because now they know what not to do,
that's right.
right? So when I see somebody, you've made mistakes, and I'd love for you to share some of those. You share your story very well. If you never made those, then you can't teach other people,
Yeah.
right, how to go through it or how to avoid it.
And how about if I never beat the system, I couldn't understand the system, or if I never understood the system, I couldn't beat the system.
Right.
So the process of being able to get back federal time, for anybody who know, that's pretty much almost an impossible feat, right? Because of the way the laws are designed in their favor, especially when you're talking about drug conspiracies.
Peace Family's 19 Keys tapping in. I will be in Oakland at the Grand Lake Theater for the premiere of Pierre Russian, wrongly convicted man of murder. I actually met this young man when I was younger, and he used to come to our temple in Oakland, and we used to train. The brother reached out to me and asked me if I can get involved in his project. As he's fighting to show his innocence, he's going to be premiering a documentary in Oakland at the Grand Lake Theater, and I'll be there as a host of the event, and we're going to be having a discussion. I would love for you to pull up, because I know every one of us has somebody that has been wrongly convicted, that has been going through the criminal injustice system, right? And it's time for us to remember and fight for those who are the invincible of the society, those who are locked down in prison, and those who are fighting to show that they deserve to be free. Meet me May 20th at the Grand Lake Theater for the Pierre Russian movie premiere called Undefeated. Peace. I'll see you there.
Right? The laws are stacked against drug conspiracies because the drug war was a money-making system. So it wasn't about punishing the people who's doing wrong. It was about, let's be able to compartmentalize how we're getting this money off of this stuff, right? So when you talk about beating the feds, man, on a 9th grade education, mind you, right? The one thing I wanted to talk to you about is most people would believe that, oh, he's intelligent, so that's how he did it, right? He got a 9th grade education. That don't matter, right? Conventional education don't matter.
Right.
But he must be smart if he did it. No, you know what I was? I was cemented in my optimism. I knew I needed more than intelligence, because if I'm fighting a system that nobody beat, I'm pretty sure plenty intelligent people came before me. What's going to separate me from them? Same thing separate Kobe Bryant from everything else. He know him. He knows what he can do regardless to what anybody else has to say. So I had this thing I used to do. I used to go talk to people who actually lost their case. I used to play devil's advocate on myself. I wanted them to play devil's advocate on me. I'll show them what I'm working with. Obviously, a little bit of it, because you're in that situation. You don't want everybody in your stuff. But the ones who knew what you were going through, I would go to the ones who couldn't get themselves out just to hear them say, nah, Sam, it ain't going to work. What that forces me to do is, now he just gave a direct threat to my fortitude of optimism. What do you mean I can't do that? So now I go unconsciously figure out more ways to fortify what you just said. Oh, I ain't going to do it because of this? Well, watch what I come back with. So I ended up devising a strategy that backed the federal government in the corner. And the way I was able to do that is by cutting off every possibility. When you're fighting federal cases, you're looking at cases of people who lost. There's only a few cases of people who won, and most of the time they won at Supreme Court level. They didn't win at district court or appellate court. They had to take it straight up to the top dogs of the country, right, to get a decision. So I had to go find. So I said, you know what? Since I can't find too many cases that reflect my case, because when you're fighting the law, you have to point to examples of things that happen already. Those are called, what are they called? Case law, right? So when you point to the case law, you have to have something to prove that this happened before. Listen, you did this to me because y'all said this before. But what the judges do when you read these cases, at the end, they have something called the judge's opinion, right? An overview. So it was always, this person would have won if they just didn't do this. This person could have won if they would have just signed this. They always say what you could have won. And it's like, you hear so many. So I'm like, okay, how can I cut off every angle of them trying this bullshit on me with the, oh, well, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. So that's what I started to do. I said, well, the first thing you could do is go get those cases where people lost. and build your strategy based on those judges' opinions. So put them in a situation where they cannot say that. You did everything. You crossed all your T's. You dotted all your I's. And it was to such a degree, bro, that my decision came back in the mail. They said, we don't want to wrestle with you, champ. Because these things you just figured out, I don't know what you on over there, but if we let this go into the system, it's going to cost us too much money. Too many people are going to come home. So I discovered that they were basically using a wiretap as a federal informant without telling the judge that they went to get the warrant from, that they actually had a federal wiretap. And the one violation of probable cause or the Fourth Amendment is that you do not give the judge the proper information to allow them to perform their judiciary duties, in a fair and unbiased manner. So if you don't tell her, if you got her thinking you got somebody directly telling you this, then she believes that whatever they're saying is in that house is in there. But if you would have told I have a federal wiretap, now you got to go through other processes which they don't have time for, according to them. They want to do a quantum leap right into the case. Yeah. So they're like, all right, let's get this Stingray device. Let's listen to him for 30 days. If you guys don't know what a Stingray device is, that's a surveillance device that was created. So pretty much what it is they got different names for it. Catfish, Stingray, what's the other one? Dirt box, right? And all of these things are devices that pretty much attach to your phone. Now what they do is they act as the cell tower for your phone, right? So if you make a call to me, it don't go to the tower, it goes to the Stingray. Right? So they use these devices before they get permission so they can gather evidence. So they actually did have a wiretap and they were gathering evidence, but they were doing it without permission from the judge. So you have to go ask for permission for a wiretap. You can't just use the device. And it's funny because on a higher level, these devices came out in 2002. It wasn't no coincidence. They came out during the Patriot Act, right? And the War on Terror.
Homeland Security.
But here's what they did. Where there was not many attacks in this country, they gave every single police department one of these Stingrays who were a major city. So I'm in Pittsburgh, I get caught up in the Stingray years later. And they use the Stingray, why? So they can wrap up multiple people. So if you deploy this device, it will get up to 160,000 conversations at one time. This was back then, bro. We're talking 10 years ago. We don't know what type of device they have now. So if they deploy it here, it gets everybody in this area, and then they got to cipher through the numbers to catch up to who you are. But everybody else around you just had their rights violated. They're watching you as a drug dealer. They're watching me as a drug dealer. What does that have to do with this lady over here? When you're listening to some young lady's conversation about having cancer, or something her doctor's telling her, when there's, doctor patient privilege, where there's doctor patient privilege when it comes to psychology. But you're on these phones using these devices and you're hearing people's private conversations, which is against the law by the Constitution. So this is why it's important. It ain't important because you're watching a drug dealer. It's important because you think you can use your law to break law, and you can't. So I pointed you out, I shine light on your shit, and then you had to let me go. So here's the thing. They deploy these devices in areas where they know. Same thing with the school zone. If you ever heard of a drugs-free school zone, drug-free school zones are put in ghettos. Why? Because there's a school, PS 1, 2, 3, 4, 15, 16, 17, everywhere you go in an urban ghetto community. But where do you see schools in the suburb? They're very far and apart, right? So if you have this drug-free school zone law, yeah, you can apply it to the whole Jersey, but we know if I'm in Mont Creek, New Jersey, which ain't a real place, the schools are so far and apart that the drug-free school zone isn't really biased to anybody. But if you got 20 schools in Paterson, New Jersey, and you saying if you caught selling drugs within 500 feet of this school, you're going to get a certain amount of time, a mandatory minimum for doing that. It's just a way to put people away longer. It's a bunch of schools. So now, what are the disparities of people from urban neighborhoods and people from suburban neighborhoods that are actually in jail? Because my suburban friends stayed on the sidewalk too. It's the environment you grow up in. See, my white friends in the hood went to jail. My black friends in the hood went to jail.
My white friends in the suburbs stayed on the sidewalk. My black friends in the suburbs stayed on the sidewalk. It's the environment, man.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So now, when you look at this, they deploying these things in areas where they're predominantly black people.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you going to get on the wire? We had 36 people on our indictment. Only about 4 of us was really getting to it. The rest of everybody else were either addicts or young kids. And yes, the feds will haul in 14 and 15-year-old boys and charge them as adults. So this whole system, and when I got up there, a lieutenant had actually told me when I was coming back from transport from court, I asked him, I said, yo, what are y'all going to do with this building? Y'all got a 5,000, like it fits 5,000 people and they're only using it for one portion where I'm at in Ohio. So you heard of CCAs, right? Since we're on the topic of the money in the stock market. So Correction Corps of America is a tradable stock on the stock market, right? And they said rumors to have, Michael Jordan, bunch of people in it, and people
Was a different Michael Jordan the whole time.
Exactly. And not only that, I mean, if you're not investing in it, then what are you doing? Right? It's there regardless of what. You're not investing in what they're doing. You're not investing in how they're actually getting money off of that thing. But when you refuse to, like DEI, when you refuse to invest in these things, then first of all, you refuse to understand them. And if you can't get close to something, you can't understand it.
Well, I would say that if you were to do something like that, then it would have to be for the point of getting majority shareholders so that you have a voice within what happens in that infrastructure.
Exactly. How do you think
just
Warren
investing
Buffett,
on
how did Warren
benefits
Buffett
them?
get his voice? By coming in and buying most of the shares of these companies. Now Dairy Queen can't make a move without him. Now Progressive Insurance can't make a move. I mean, Geico Insurance.
Then that means that the individual investor is not the powerful one, right? That means that you would then create a collective investment group, right? So that when they're investing, that money gives them more power as a group to vote, right? So that, again, going to primacy shareholders, you feel me? Going back to 1919, now they can make decisions to say, well, listen, we as shareholders don't like this thing that's happening in the company.
Exactly.
Right? Now you have a voice, but I think it's the individual. So if you come together as a fund, then that's powerful. But if each individual is doing something, there's no power in it.
And see,
because they don't own a large enough piece, right? Individually to have a voice.
But that one person with that largest piece can manipulate the other ones. And there's things that they can do to basically get the others to band together, because you do have a 12% while everybody else got 2%. Believe me, it do mean something. It just don't mean nothing when they gang up on you. But who's going to gang up on the person with the most percentage at the end of the day? Nobody. That's why ain't nobody going to gang up on Elon Musk right now, right? He got the most money, right? But there's other people with money too. And if they put it together, they more powerful than him? No, that's not how they see it. Because it's not him or his money. It's the things he got his hands in that they can't touch no more. Infrastructure. So back to what I was saying, I asked this lieutenant, why is there not 5,000 people occupying this building? I got 600 people in a big ass massive building. So he said to me, he said, well, we'll have people in here real soon. He said, because one thing the federal government promised us when the state of Ohio allowed them to put this federal prison, this private prison in here, is they promised us that they'll fill the beds. This man told me to side his mouth. He said, they promised us when we put that there, we will fill the bed. So now back to how I watched in the 3-year time that I was in CCA. Now up in CCA, Correction Corps of America in Youngstown, Ohio, they house Buffalo, New York. They house Pittsburgh, and they house Cleveland. In that time, the 2.5 years I spent there fighting my case, I watched over 650 people come in on drug conspiracies. So you just talking about from Pittsburgh. I watched 650 people come in on drug conspiracies over a 3-year span in one city. So what are they doing? They're employing this device, right? Is this device, is this dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion, this device? Of course not. Because if it was, it'd be over in Squirrel Hill, where every now and then is one white guy on the case, or, one fair-skinned guy that come from a nice neighborhood on the case. Why it's only one? Because they don't deploy the device there. And his dumb ass went over here dealing with me in the hood because maybe he grew up with me.
Well, that's the whole idea about, do black people commit most crimes? No, we're just the ones that they punish the most.
We're the ones that they're directing again.
And when you go look at, like it's such a large percentage of people that are on the death row, right? All of the ones that get amnesty and things of that nature, those are all black people.
Yeah.
So we're also the most likely to be found not guilty, right? After we've been found guilty, right? When you finding people that are, incarcerated that are innocent. We got the highest percentage, but they never present the data in that manner because they try to make us seem as if we animals. And the reality of it is that even though we're a group that has the most poverty, according to those numbers, we actually should commit more crimes.
That's right.
Right? Because if we correlated that same data to other groups that had the same level of poverty, then they would be committing twice as many crimes based on the numbers.
Yeah.
So for me, you really think about it, I think that, looking at us as a people, we are very, I think, peaceable people. We just let, I think, the worst of us represent us too much.
And
right?
I think what you said is important too. I think a lot of times I hear people and I hear their opinions about and their theories about, humanity in general, especially about the culture, right? I think we got to start compartmentalizing these things, right? Like I explained to you, it's my opinion that Jews don't run this country. They run industries in this country that matter, right? That's just my theoretical, from my research that I gather, right? And before you dispute that or before you debate that, make sure you do your research first. That's the only thing. Don't just throw out frivolous stuff in comments and get people to sway with you, right? Make sure you studying because again, the basis of this conversation between me and you wasn't on no conspiracy theory. We were going to come in here and speak specifically to a thing, which was money. And I think we did great at that, right? Not only from a standpoint of where it come from or how it multiplies, but how we can get it to actually trickle over to us and actually stay there and actually, be a part of whatever new system that is being developed and instead of being at the tail end of it or the butt of it, we can actually be at the lube, the oil part of it, right? The reason why it's actually working, right? Because like you mentioned BlackRock, you mentioned Vanguard. Right? It's companies like this who over time, come from older companies who transition and men, get chosen to get put in these positions of power for whatever reason, right? BlackRock, they claim they saved the financial crisis of 2008. That's why they became who they were, right? I could beg to differ, right? Whatever, right? But the thing about it is they do control the things because when you look, they own 65%. Or they managing 65% of the world's capital. It's not just America. So when you talk about them having $13 trillion, they can buy a small country, bro. A lot of small countries.
They have infinite money at that point.
Exactly. Because now, again, it goes back to this Federal Reserve, the centralized banking style, who we somehow under the impression believe that our government owns.
Well, all right. So that's their system. All right. So now how do we, if you teaching a young mind, somebody that's getting in the game, somebody that don't have much money to their name, they got $500 to $1,000, right? What's their plan over the next 5 years to start developing wealth?
First of all, we have to start with knowledge. That's the seed. If you're not willing to do that, then none of this stuff could come to fruition for you. None of it, all serves you no purpose, right? Again, somebody giving you money with no knowledge, the money's going to go sooner or later because you don't have the knowledge to multiply it. So that's the first thing. Learn the basics of money from inflation and interest rates. You don't have to go no further than that. Inflation and interest rates will teach you a lot about money. Now that you understand a little bit about money, now you understand you need to be investing it, right? So what does that mean, Sam? Well, that means if I just told you that if money was worth, let's say one of your dollars were worth 20 cents, 20 real cent, right? Well, it's only worth 5 cents now. So as time go on, it's going to be worth less. So I'm teaching you, do not save your money. That's the one thing we want to stop doing. Have a reserve, but not a savings. Keys mentioned something that's very important. You said, put the money into gold. There's countries where people put name. That is a storable thing. That is a store of value. You see what I'm saying? The stock market is a store of value. But if you have your money sitting in a bank and it's experiencing the fluctuations of inflation, your money is no longer worth what it was. That's just bottom line. So why are you saving it?
You're saving it, allowing somebody else to take advantage of it and give you the peanuts in return. And you go back to your savings account, you're only 0.07 higher than it was 2 years ago when you put it in there. So we have to get out of this mentality of wanting to look at money, of wanting to see our money, of wanting to go on our phone and look at our money, because eventually, guess what? Them dollars you got under your mattress is not going to mean shit anymore. So you're going to be looking at something worthless the same way they were back in 1775 when the continental currency went to shit. And another thing, stocks, knowledge of basic economics, stocks, and learning a deployable skill set like trading. Learn how to trade futures.
What is futures for those?
Okay, so they have a thing called commodities, right? Commodities market. So the commodity is pretty much oil or anything that can be multiplied. So how many things can they drill oil, and when they actually have access to oil, how many different things can you produce out of oil? Out of an orange, out of a peanut, out of a tree. These are considered commodities, right? Even the U.S. stock market itself is a commodity because multiple value is produced out of it. Out of that one thing, it keeps multiplying itself, right? So that's what a commodity is. Gold, silver, corn, cattle, wheat, all these things are commodities. So futures are actually, if you guys understand anything about options, how options is a contract against your stock, 100 shares of your stock. A future is a contract against a commodity. So again, commodities are assets, right? Assets that can multiply themselves. So the U.S. stock market is an asset, and it's also a commodity. So the future that I trade is called the ES mini contract futures. So pretty much I'm just trading one thing. I'm trading the S&P 500 every day. But what is the S&P 500? It is the Standard & Poor 500 largest companies in this world. That is a gauge, is a measurement for us to see how the entire world's economy is doing. Because we have the greatest companies in the world, the most formidable companies and the most profitable companies. So it is our stock market that acts as a gauge to the rest of the world to tell us how the economy is actually doing, right? So we trade that thing. Why? Because that's the most participated index in the world. What do I mean by that? Everybody's participating in trading the top 500 companies. What else do you want? There's 10,000 stocks listed on the stock exchange. Don't you want the top 5 of the top 500? So that's what it is. It tracks those 500 companies from Amazon to Meta, Apple, Tesla, whatever it is, the top companies. Now it gives a score based on how each one of those individual companies are doing. It gives that entire index a score. If some of them down, you may see the market up, but just a little bit. If some of them up, you may see the market up, but just a little bit. Either have. Whatever way that the pendulum swing, if the pendulum swing towards more buyers, then the price going to go up. If it swing towards more sellers, it's going to go down. But the S&P 500 futures is the best, most efficient tradable thing for us because it helps you manage your risk. Why? Because so many people are participating in it. So it's liquid. What does liquid mean? Liquid is an asset's ability to turn into cash. So if this iPhone was considered liquid or an asset, what is its stability? How fast can I call somebody and sell this? How fast can I trade this in and turn this into cash? That's what liquidity is. So the S&P 500 is the most liquid market because everybody in the world is trying to participate in it. What does that do? That means that I can go on a small time frame in the ES or in the futures market, which is probably 5 or 10 minutes, 15 minutes out my day, and find a great move that's suitable for me to close my account and say I made enough money for today. Because of the fact that it moves in spurts in such a small time frame.
Do you think people should paper trade first before they get into real trading?
No, I think paper trading is an illusion, and I think that teaches you to lose your money. Because what happens is there's no such thing as a fake trade, right? It's one thing to be paper trading, and then you're off, somebody call your phone, you go to the refrigerator, go to the bathroom,
But if you knew that was real money, you wouldn't be moving like that.
Mm.
Because as you see that price moving, especially if you don't have knowledge of what's going on, you're super nervous. Hey, listen, if somebody's holding a blank gun, a gun with blanks out at you, and a real gun, you know which one feels real because you know in your mind which one is real. So it's the same thing with paper trading. See, when Thinkorswim created that, they created ways for people to give their money over to the market. Every time you're trading, you're on the other side of somebody. Somebody believes that the price is going up and you believe it's going down, or vice versa. So it's the same thing. We're up against the machine. The machine don't want to help us. There's nothing they're saying on the news that's of your benefit. Because first of all, anything that's saying on the news is like 3 months news. That's going to affect you later. That's 3 months down the line. Companies operate in quarters. They report profits in quarters. Sometimes they come on prematurely and tell you things to manipulate the market, but that's not what moves the market. What moves the market is buying and selling. And the buying and selling coming from the top half of the owners of the market. And who is that? BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Fidelity. These huge financial investment firms, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, they are the ones who own all the shares on the U.S. stock market. They own 70% of the shares on the U.S. stock market. And I think the U.S. stock market is currently valued at about $60-70 trillion, if I'm not mistaken. So they're owning 70-80% of this value. So the whole point is for us to get hip to this information and start pretty much shifting that number, shifting that ratio. How do we shift that ratio? How do we bring it down? By us owning some, by us becoming hip to what's going on, by us buying what they buy when they buy it and selling it when they sell it.
So what are the best websites you use to get your real-time information? I know they got stuff like Forex Factory and things of that nature.
So you can use TradingView. That's the best one. And they actually, so the thing about it is this. The stock market or trading is not a guessing game. It's based on a skill set. And that skill set is called reading charts. So we read a stock's chart to see or gauge where the price can or cannot go. And then we strategize around that. You see what I'm saying? So when you talk about real-time data, that was a good question. And so what you're talking about is being able to watch charts right now so you can make a move, because if not, you're lagging and you're 5 minutes behind, maybe in the wrong trade. So TradingView is a great platform for that, because they not only allow you to chart, but they only charge you like $5 a month or maybe $12 a month to access the real-time data, which is what you need as a trader. And that's the thing, man. That's a good question you asked, man. Trading is definitely a skill that I think young people should develop. I think if you suffer from any attention deficit syndrome type thing, I think it's great for you. It was great for me, you know. And not to mention, man, it gives you the freedom and the power to pretty much do what you want. You pretty much trading for your time back. You see what I'm saying? Because we do so many things. What has it been a fight for from the beginning? To find faster ways to do things. Imagine if we ain't have a car. I mean, I think we lived longer then when it took us longer to do things, because naturally we weren't violating the laws of life, right? If we got to freaking walk over here and do this, maybe we got to go through that to be who we are. Maybe we live longer. But when you create the car and now you getting there much easier, you drove for 2 hours, but it's bad on your back. It's bad on your neck, right? And then you got lazy. So mentally, maybe our ability to speed up processes is really slowing us down and killing us. My man said, you know, maybe if you slow down, you'll actually go faster. You know?
I think that that's true, actually, because I think you become more centered and I think you become more thoughtful in your actions.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, the better the thought, right?
Yeah.
It's not about how can I work the hardest, because when you think about energy, like the more energy you apply to something, more energy is coming back to you, right? So that's not the way you actually want to make your progress. When you think about a quantum leap, it's not saying that I want to go step by step by step by step, because it's saying that I want to shift right all the way right here into where I need to be. Now that goes against linear thinking models that we are taught, right? And the reality of it is that no, I don't want to go from step by step by step. And we can't afford to go in that matter.
We can't.
Right? So, you know, we're taught not to skip steps, but in a certain way of thinking in life, you want to skip steps.
But is it a skip or is it an actual you knowing it? Or
It's number one, destroying this belief. And it's like you talked about the system. You can't beat the system. That's an idea that becomes a reality, right? You repeat it over and over, and it becomes this living thing.
No, actually, I said in order for you to beat it, you have to understand it.
Right, but a lot of people have it in their mind. You can't
beat it. Yeah.
So that becomes a thing that you're fighting against.
And not only that, it's the cause of all their problems too.
Right. It's your belief that you're fighting against.
I can't beat the system. It's the cause of my problems. So what do that lead me to doing?
And so instead, what you would need to do is just create a whole new thinking to live by.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm not fighting against the friction of this idea that I'm going against.
Yeah.
Right. Instead, one of the biggest ways that people can transform their life is just believing that they're already there, right? And reverse engineering, catching up to that. That's what confidence is. Confidence places you in the shift already, right? When you have the confidence of a wealthy man, you're energetically already wealthy, right? The universe just starts to respond and align everything up to where you at energetically and subconsciously.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to change is your belief, because it's so hard and as far as the way you think you need to do things, because that's how you were taught.
Bro, that's what we were just talking about with the optimism when we get home. My hardest fight, don't get me wrong, the federal law consists of 10 million words, and most of which are Latin, right? And not words that we use every day. They have a Black Laws Dictionary, and those words are specifically for the law, right? With that being said, bro, that was my hardest. The hardest part of my fight was waking up in the morning and fighting off the disbelief. The hardest part was waking up in the morning saying, it don't cost you nothing to say you coming home. And to really know it. Hell with believing, you know it. So people used to be like, yo, San, I'm praying for you. Yo, San, I hope. And I used to stop them in mid-sentence. I used to be like, yo, you know who needs your hope? Kids in Africa. You know, starving kids that can't help themselves, handicaps. You know, that's who needs your hope and prayers. I appreciate it, but this one's on me, because you know why? My decisions led me here. So accountability is a spirituality. It's not a characteristic. Like I tell people, it's a trait. And that's why most people can't amass that. And that's why we're so lacking of accountability of our situation that it leads us to resorting to the only thing we have, emotions. Emotions.
Which makes it easy to control and direct.
Exactly.
Peace, family. It's two things that you need right now in order to win in life ultimately. You need your mind right and you need your money right. And that's the challenge that I put to you. For the mind right part, I can handle that, right? I can get you thinking optimally to where you can succeed in any environment in life. For the money right part, that's when I got Wise Money Santino, and they're going to teach you about something called mini futures, to where you learn how to master the market and move like the market makers. This will allow you to be able to make money in any market. I was always taught, do not chase money. You create value and money comes to you. The way you become more valuable is through learning. When you develop a new skill, a skill that nobody can take away from you, you can make money regardless of what's happening in the market. There's always something being traded. Right now, we're over trading our time trying to make money, when we should be developing our mind and utilizing our skills to make money. Wise Money Santino is somebody who's been doing this for a living, being able to pull money out the market because of the skill set that nobody can snatch away. So I want to challenge you to a VIP experience, to where you can experience live trading, you can develop these skills, and you can master the market like the market makers do. Make sure you tap in to the Mind Right, Money Right Challenge, 19 keys, and I'll see you there. Peace.
You're going to have to come on this real money experience. We're going to build out the biggest community, live streaming, trading community ever seen in their life. Now, people have them, but they're not us.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And they're not as efficient at what they do as we are, as in me, my partner. You know, they're not as efficient. They don't have the edge that we have. So what we're going to show these people from a standpoint of me and him being from two different worlds, I got a street background. He got JP Morgan background. The real money experience is going to be a real thing. And then it's coming with an app.
So right there, you said edge in the market. I think that's probably one of the biggest keys when you're dealing with the market, because it's gambling without that edge.
It is.
Right? So I want you to tell me if this is true or not.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you can finish this.
Okay.
What is the 70% rule?
What happens 70% in the time in the market? I don't know. That might be one of those little cliche things they got out there.
Give me a hint. Based on the initial move.
Based on the initial move, what happens 70%? What, it goes up? Because the market definitely designed to go up. It goes up more than it goes down.
70% of the time the market opens, its initial moves in one direction, but then reverses and gains in the opposite direction before the session ends.
Yeah, that's called the 10 a.m. rule.
Yeah.
So they called it the 70% rule.
Yeah, that's how I first learned about it.
It's the 10 a.m. rule. So at 10 a.m., so what happens?
There's another 15% rules.
So let's expound on that a bit. What that means is 9:30 the market opens up all around the world. The whole world is working off our time, 9:30 to 4 p.m. The market opens up. Institutions are not present at that time. So what you're getting is a bunch of antsy people that probably been waiting all week in the trade, and the prices are jumping all over the place because there's so many uneducated non-professionals trading at that time. So the 10 a.m. rule suggests that whatever direction price was heading in, more than likely at 10 a.m. when the institutions walk in the building, is going to have a reversed effect. So it could be going down and go up. It could be going up and go down. So that's what the 10 a.m. rule is. It's not, like they said, it's not etched in stone, but there are patterns in which you have to pay attention to, right? Because who's controlling the buttons on the market? That's me and you buying and selling, and me and you have habits and things that can be picked up on. So you have to pick up on the habits of the market and the trends, and that's how you take advantage of it.
All right, let me ask you this. You want to go low level or high level?
Let's go high level.
All right. So this is what, my GPT considers to be high level anyway.
Okay. Now your GPT something I needed. I know your GPT.
So the whole idea of the session between low level versus high level is you can get a low level question, particularly about the subject we talking about, which is money, or we can get a high level question.
Okay.
All right. Now the high level question is going to be something simple. What is why do they put sigils on money? Or let's say, what is one of the symbols of sigils, like the metaphysical occult symbols they put on money?
Well, it represents a few different things according to, the way I was taught. It could represent Masonic order. It can represent, the Shriner order, which is different, It could represent secret orders within the government. It could also represent, a lot of their thinking that went into that actual design of that dollar. The U.S. Mint came into play, like I said, 1792 with the Coinage Act. So a lot of those symbolizations on that dollar tells their story to their path and what they planned on doing.
What is one of the main symbols we see on the dollar?
The Eye of Horus.
Come on now.
Yeah.
The
Eye of Horus, all seeing eye.
The pentagrams,
exactly.
The pyramids.
And
these are our entity stamps that direct power. And when you spending money, it's a economic ritual.
Yeah.
Right? That's the whole thing about it. You got to think about it. If you were designing a dollar, you put all of these pentagrams and sigils, what are you locking in? Right? What are you putting into this system? So when you spending money frivolously, you feel me? You have the understanding you're binding yourself into a contract, right, of action through this consistent ritual, right? To be a consumer, right? Especially if you're a greedy consumer, that money just goes out without the knowledge of understanding the power, right, of the spells that you cast. And as you spending energy, you can end up what? Drowning in debt, right?
Exactly.
Because another, a water turn when it comes to money, right? You can be so liquid, which we are with cash, right, that you're overspending and that energy is going out, and none of it is circulating to make you healthy.
Gotcha.
Right? And so poverty literally makes us sick, right? We have poverty-induced stress syndrome, right, where people are pissed. You understand me? And that means that when you are impoverished, and let's say you have a health issue, because stress causes health issues, now you can't even afford, right, to go get treatment. So now it creates this cycle. So this is how poverty itself is an economic ritual. But if you're learning correctly from your experience, then you should be evolving out of it.
Exactly.
And your goal is figuring out first layer, let me get out of surviving. Because once you get out of surviving, you start true living.
That's right.
While you're in survival mode, you're essentially in debt to reality and you are a slave, which means that you're stuck in a cycle, right? Because you're bonded by this debt that you have and you can't get to true thinking of what you actually want to do. You don't know what you desire. You really only know what you need. And then when you ignore those needs for how you feel, right? And you never take care of those needs, then you stuck, right? And so bills become your slave master.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The
Family lifestyle.
right? Keeping up with the family
country
becomes
club.
a slave master.
Yeah.
You feel me? So you can have a neighbor that has a Lamborghini, right? And that could be his slavery because he has an insecurity. He spent all his money trying to keep up with those payments to look a certain way because inside he feels like nothing.
Exactly.
So you have to be careful of what you're looking at because you don't want to be motivated by somebody else's insecurity because they went and got something that made them feel like they were more
That's
in
right.
reality that they can't even afford.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is how you get this economic slavery. And most people are stuck under these spells.
Yeah.
Your goal as a people should be making a quantum leap past surviving so that we can focus purely on evolution.
Yeah.
Right. So the evolution of a people starts when they get out of survival mode so they can start thinking about what they truly desire for themselves and the world.
And it starts now. Take whatever you got, 200, 300, 100, whatever it is, and you can start with this. You don't have to be a genius. How about you start with this, with the things that you know you need around your house? Now, it's not that simple to pick the greatest stock in the world just because you buy the product, but do what makes sense. You know what makes sense. You know what's hot because you're out there living amongst the trend.
And
So-
everybody has the time.
Exactly. So use that to just gather general principles on how I can make moves in the stock market, in this futures market. To be honest with you, I like my past few interviews, I've been pushing people towards futures because options is pretty much a setup in a sense where your discipline really have to align with what you know. What you know really doesn't matter at that point.
Right.
It's if you do, because the market will allow your blind grandmother could get money in the market.
The only thing I say, unless you're using something like the Trade Hero app, where you're taking those exact trades, right, when they putting them out, and you know you're selling when they tell you to sell, and you're getting the notifications on your phone, then yeah, which is why I talked about automated trading because they're and this is like most people don't know about the Trade Hero app, so most people are now, of course, utilizing it. Right, we gave people access to it for free at our last event by using a promo code, but that is because I understand how time sensitive, and I want people to get into the education of it. Even if you download the app and just watch the win rate.
That's right.
Right? The thing is, when I say everybody has time, don't focus on what you can't do. Focus on what you can.
That's right.
If there's a marathon or somebody's saying to prepare for this marathon, I need you to run 50 minutes per day. And he said, well, I can't do that. We'll start with 5 minutes per day.
Yeah.
Odds are you go start with that 5 minutes. You go get 5 minutes up and be like, why would I just stop at 5? I can go 6. I can go 10. You know what I'm saying? And then every day you increase that threshold. So the same thing was with learning. Start with 5 minutes a day.
I think what we're going to do is we're going to put together a high-level wealth building program, right? And don't think of that as sounding boring because it's going to be high frequency. We're going to be getting money now, right? There is a way to satisfy your short-term thinking, your instant gratification.
Yeah.
Right?
We want you to get out of debt
That's
and out of worrying about bills.
and debt should be instantly gratified. Debt
Right.
should you
Well,
should get
learn
out
how to
now.
use the debt.
Yeah.
Let's say get out of being under debt.
Yeah, don't be afraid of debt because
being over
there's so much money being made off debt. Don't be afraid
leverage
of
it for sure.
Yeah, leverage it for sure. And
Learn
there's
your
companies
credit,
out there that want
financial
your debt.
literacy, a money skill, decrease the amount of money you spend, right? Increase the amount of assets you buy, increase the amount of money that you learn, and change your circle away from broke
That's it.
people.
That's
You
it.
feel me? Because if those people are broke, then they're going to make you broke because you're going to mirror their actions and be influenced by what they do. And so if that's your family member, if that's your friend, no matter who it is, I say get away from broke people, right? Because being poor is almost a disease.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? that you can catch by just being around other poor people. And it more so goes into poor thinking, poor habits, poor quality of living,
Yeah.
poor quality of eating, right? So you develop poor habits, poor patterns of thoughts, which creates a poor reality.
Microcosm of everything.
Right.
It starts from the top.
So if you're not learning from your current condition, then you're nurturing that current condition. So if, let's say, if you made $30,000 last year, what did you learn from that? You should have learned what you don't want, what you do want, what you did wrong, what you don't want to do wrong, right? Poverty is a lesson, right? It's not, you're supposed to graduate from it. Year over year, we go into high school, we graduate,
You ain't
right?
supposed to wallow in it.
Right, you're not supposed to stay there.
You're not
Everything,
supposed to wallow in it.
every state that you in is a lesson to how to get out of it.
Yeah.
You've experienced it. Okay, you've experienced poverty. You've experienced lack of discipline. You've experienced all these things. What haven't you experienced is what you should be going for.
That's right.
I now realize you go look at all of your beliefs and your core values around money, your ideas, your habits, what you spend, and you put that on paper, right? And then you know exactly what you never want to do again, what you never want to live. Burn that piece of paper. Make it a ritual. I'm done with this life. Eating this way got me this body. I don't want to feel this way no more. So guess what? I'm not eating that food. Eating this frequently, right, got me in this condition, right? Being infrequent in the gym, right, creates that consistent lack of discipline in my life. You know what? I'm not doing that no more. What you're doing is you're burning that old version of you, right? And now you replace that with these new habits. And you write down all these new habits, how you want to feel. And then every single day, you ain't gonna get there instantly, but eventually you're gonna look at all these habits, the way you should eat, what looks like the highest level of life, and then you will be like, damn, my life is now aligned here.
Yeah.
And then the results of that, the effect of that, it's wealth, it's money, it's opportunity.
Exactly.
Right? It's higher living. Think about your friends' habits and the ones they have. And if you were to add those up, right, it equals your life.
That's right.
Now, what do you want? And so this is a thing that we don't get a lot of times in the streets, is how to let people go.
Yeah.
Right? Because we mourn the depth of relationships, right? When we really should celebrate the evolution of our new life.
That's right.
And our new relationships that we gain.
Yeah.
I don't want to be around people who was feeding my old self to stay in that same environment, and they wasn't pushing me to evolve. They go get mad at you. So what? Right? You had to be mad at my old self because my new self don't care.
That's right.
Right? But then if you were to evolve, we could be cool again. You feel me?
Yeah.
But I cannot allow you to keep me in the same condition because you don't want to evolve.
No, it's only one or two ways that go. Either I pull you up, which is impossible, or you drag me down, which is more likely to happen.
I would say take my lead.
That's right.
Because when we try to pull people up, we're pulling so much energy. And that means sometimes they don't want to go in that direction.
Yeah, it's so much weight because that simple reason. They don't want to go in the direction, so that adds excess weight.
Right.
While you trying to pull them up. No, it's a switch that has to flip in them.
Right. And
Now,
stop
it still
listening
may
to
be a
yourself.
little heavy, but now it's a little bit lighter because they actually want to get to where you're trying to pull them up to.
Right. But they have to be climbing in order for, I'm going to assist you.
That's
right.
right.
Along that, because you don't want to take too much of somebody else's weight,
Yeah.
right, on your shoulder. And they should not want you to take that. So if you assist somebody, there should be so much gratitude that they take that opportunity and make leaps and bounds in life.
First backflip I did was my friends holding me like this.
Yeah.
And then before I know it, I ain't need that. I
Right.
could do a round off semi on my own. It's the same thing.
Some of the worst people ever on your ascension is your family. Think about it. How many people, family and friends, how many people that you gave money and never gave it back to you?
Yeah, and it mainly it'd be our fault because of our core belief of our family.
Nah, it's their fault. It's their fault. No, I'm gonna say this. Because if you love somebody, you should never want to take from them without giving back.
That's right.
That's not family.
That's not.
You telling me I gave you $1,000. You have no idea about paying me back at all. You should want to nurture that relationship.
So it's always there.
The more we end up loving people, we create bad relationships, the more we give them. Because they create that as well, which means that there's something wrong with your heart. There's something wrong with your mind if you don't want to pay those people back. So when you have that kind of relation, it becomes lopsided. Because now there's this void there. Like you are respecting them and appreciating them more than they're respecting you. Right? And now it creates this disconnection between, wait a minute, if I did that to a friend that I respect, I gave them some money and they never gave it back, don't bring it up, what's wrong with them? Like, I need my paper.
Yeah.
Because it's the principle.
Yeah.
And the principle creates that value between you all so that you create them continue mutual connections and y'all have a higher level relationship. But if I'm giving to people and they not even trying to give back, or they're asking, knowing with the awareness that they're not going to give back, or developing a capability, you don't ever want to owe somebody that you respect.
We got to have debitors jail for them.
Think about that.
We got to have debitors jail.
You wouldn't want to owe nobody you respect.
We got to have debitors jail.
It's a lack of respect.
Even family.
Yeah.
We got to have debitors jail.
Definitely.
Hey,
Feel me?
Listen, so here's the thing. That's why the Federal Reserve was created. We got to start creating Federal Reserves within our own family construct. Right? So if you the best knower, if you the best economist and the best financial, you got the most financial literacy in the family, then it's on you to be that central bank.
And you should work for that person.
Exactly. Everybody should be, they told the 24 banks, whether you like it or not, bring us your money and we'll tell you how to deal with your money, because y'all keep going broke.
Right.
We need to do the same thing amongst our families.
That's a indentured servant too.
Yeah.
The whole family be working for you, man.
No.
Whoever owes you should work and pay that debt off.
Yeah, definitely.
Straight up.
But what did the central bank do with Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, them? Y'all won't be a part of this? Give us that money. Let us control that, because y'all too stupid to handle it.
Let me, in your life, how many people you gave money to that didn't pay you? How many people? Ballpark it. Didn't pay you back.
A few. I ain't pay a few people back too.
So it balanced out.
Yeah.
But let's say, give me just a few, so 3 people.
Yeah, I would say about family. No, I don't have no family members that I could say I did that with. I could say they did that with me. But
how many family? I'm just using an example's sake for numbers.
I got a small family, fortunately for me. So let's just say 2.
People.
Let's just say 2 people.
Okay.
2 people.
So let's say that each person that owes you money should work for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's 5 workers right now.
5 workers.
So you might need them for social media management. You might need them to drive you around. You know
but I get what you're saying. Why are they not that serious?
Everybody
about
that
paying
owes
you back?
you money should work for you.
But I get what you're saying. Why are they not that serious about paying back the same thing that you
right?
In
that creates respectable family dynamics, and this is why when a person gets some money in the family, it can break up the family.
Yeah.
Because this person stopped respecting their family because their family not respecting them. Right. And so this is why we have poor family dynamics, because you're just taking from people and not giving back. You should offer that work, and then that person should accept it so that there's no debt and there's no disconnect between y'all relationship. Y'all want to be on equal footings if y'all can. You feel me? You don't want people walking around owing you that you just had to erase their debt. No, respectfully, let's reciprocate. So therefore we can continue to grow. So now, if I want to give you something larger, you might have an idea, but I gave you $500, you couldn't take it, right? And then you build up that discipline in yourself to pay things back. So now you got credit with me. So now, man, bro, got a good idea, man. I wouldn't mind giving you $10,000 for that, $20,000 for that.
And that's the thing, right?
That I can't trust you now.
And that's the thing. That's who we were. So you recognize it.
Yeah.
You do it, then it hurts when it comes back to you. Right?
Everybody family should be volunteering to work for the person that they owe.
Every day you wake up and strive to be better, to reach a higher level, right? So you can have a real money experience, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? If you used to owe your family, if you was that type of person, start paying.
Yeah, start paying. Bro, you don't understand how great that fixes the relationship.
Be a part of the solution, not the
payment plan. And listen, I want the person that they owe to accept it. I know you're gonna be like, nah, I don't, whatever. You want to allow people that opportunity to grow, right? And that reciprocity and that respect, right? Maybe you take the money and you go give it to charity or you give it to whoever, but allow us to create that balance back within the family. I think that's necessary because we have a lot of financial imbalance and this becomes our financial traumas. And then we just start writing people off, right? So no, it allows you to reconnect, right? On equal footing again versus, that's bro, he ain't owe me money. I don't even fool him like that no more. In the back of your mind, you just said dang shit to you. You feel me? And you classify them lower versus a friend that you got or a peer that you got that respects your money, right? And they respect your money relationship. So you actually have a higher respect for them than your own family. But we talk about let's work with family. But the dynamics of that financial trauma is there. So subconsciously, you don't even respect them because they don't respect you. Exactly. They don't respect how you get money. right? They don't respect the money you give, so they don't respect your time, your energy, your mind. Those become subconscious attitudes we have towards each other.
That's right.
To where we displace the value and we devalue our own family because of our relationships that we have with money. So getting into that psychology of, man, you could pay somebody back $10, $15, $100, whatever you can. Let them know your attention.
Again, man,
Make good on it.
accountability is
Right.
is a spiritual trait. It's
Right.
hard to achieve that.
Make your word is bond.
It's hard to achieve that for some people. It's hard to achieve. Much easier.
You can always start.
It's much easier for them to say, you know what? I'd rather you view me as a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, than for them to work and to aid and to assist their accountability and strengthen that thing. Because I'm gonna tell you, man, one thing about me is I love when it's all on me, because now I can predict the outcome.
Yeah.
I can't predict the outcome if I'm relying on you. I can only know what I can bring to me.
Yes, sir.
So as we go through this journey of trying to better ourselves, you know, whether spiritual, financially, or whatever, just understand that accountability and honesty and all of these things go hand in hand. And these are some of the traits that you're going to need, right? Because you have to be accountable first and foremost for your own lack of knowledge. Because if you're running around here thinking that, one, you don't lack knowledge, or two, it's somebody else's fault that you do, you're not going to take the steps to go get your own. Understand the power in that, man. You have now tricked yourself into believing it. So your body follows your mind.
That's
all
right.
day. Mind tricks the body. Body thinks the mind is crazy. You heard what Buckshot said. It's the real thing. I tricked myself, a 9th grade dropout, that I could beat a Boston University graduate in court. Not no lawyer, me. You see what I'm saying? But not only did I do that, it went as far as me discovering a law that they never even heard about in the courtroom that they violated.
Now, I want y'all to think about that. We can end on this. Money is energy. It's not this idea of paper currency, right? It's not even just gold or things of that nature. Your health is your money. Your time is your money, right? Your mind is your money. Your freedom is your money.
Is your money.
As they say, a fool and his money shall soon depart, right? The things that you don't learn how to nurture, treat right, and master, you end up losing, right? When we don't treat our freedom right, we end up losing it. Right? When we don't respect our time, we lose it. When we don't respect our family, we lose them. We lose the things that we don't understand and we're ignorant of, and we treat them ignorantly and arrogantly, right? So changing that dynamic of our relationships with our energy, which is our money, and how to foster that and become more abundantly, right? Instead of allowing that money to master us, we learn to master it. It is one of the keys to our freedom. And I believe that higher key is that direct correlation with your connection to your God self, that Godhead. You understand me? Knowing yourself and having that level of self-awareness, that allows you to move across this planet Earth in flow. In flow of what? Your money, right? For some people, enough is enough. They don't need everything. Master fear, master greed. Know when you have enough and learn how to nurture that wealth of what you consider to be enough, right? Therefore, we become masters of our destiny instead of slaves of the debt, of not understanding our power. As we continue to move forward into the future, digital currencies, right, cryptocurrency, whatever it's going to be, it don't matter. When you master yourself, you can master anything.
That's right.
You learn the skills, you become self-determinate, right? You have respect, you have friendships of all walks of life, you have land and real estate. I was taught that that's what heaven is. Money, good homes, friendships of all walks of life. We should all be focusing on developing ourselves and our families so that we can have control of our destiny. And I want to thank my brother Wise Money, because I think that he gave us some knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of how we can enrich our lives. Peace to the family and to all the rich and righteous out there. Peace to the gods. This be a high-level conversation.
Sir, bro.
19 keys, and this is high-level conversation. Tap in with the God. There's 19 keys. The execution of knowledge is power.
Teach me how to be a god. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the man to the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a boy to a man, and ultimately, the king. From a bo back into your natural state of being, into a God.
Peace, family. It's two things that you need right now in order to win in life ultimately. You need your mind right and you need your money right. And that's the challenge that I put to you. For the mind right part, I can handle that, right? I can get you thinking optimally to where you can succeed in any environment in life. For the money right part, that's when I got Wise Money Santino, and they're going to teach you about something called mini futures, to where you learn how to master the market and move like the market makers. This will allow you to be able to make money in any market. I was always taught, do not chase money. You create value and money comes to you. The way you become more valuable is through learning. When you develop a new skill, a skill that nobody can take away from you, you can make money regardless of what's happening in the market. There's always something being traded. Right now, we're over trading our time trying to make money, when we should be developing our mind and utilizing our skills to make money. Wise Money Santino is somebody who's been doing this for a living, being able to pull money out the market because of the skill set that nobody can snatch away. So I want to challenge you to a VIP experience to where you can experience live trading. You can develop these skills and you can master the market like the market makers do. Make sure you tap in to the Mind Right, Money Right Challenge, 19 keys. And I'll see you there. Peace.